We are recording.
Wonderful. Thank you, moderator. Good morning, everyone. To my fellow board members, if you can come up on video, if you're able to. Thank you. Thank you for being here. My name is Max Disposti. I'm the chair of the Board of Behavioral Sciences, pronounced he, him. I would like to welcome you all and the public to this meeting today. Today is March 5th, 2021, and the time is 8:33. This meeting is occurring to various locations pursuant to Executive Order N-25-20, which is dated on March 12, 2020. This public meeting will be held via a WebEx platform. So good morning to you, moderator. Thanks for your help already. And could you please explain how we will be conducting the comment portions of this meeting today?
This is the moderator. Thank you. So today we'll be utilizing the WebEx Q&A feature, and it is up on the screen for your reference. If you would like to participate in public comment when it's being requested by the board, you can click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen, and a field will pop up. You click on the box and type in, "I would like to make a comment," and you send it to all panelists. And then the moderator, myself or our other moderator, will call on you, unmute your microphone, and you'll have your time to speak. And once that time is up, we will mute your microphone and move on to the next individual.
Wonderful. Moderator, thank you so much. This point, I think, is the time for us to establish a quorum. Steve, I believe you're temporarily taking Christina's role this morning for the quorum, am I right?
Yes, I am. I will do that for her today. Hopefully I can do the job. Let me see here.
Thank you.
So I will do roll call now. Anthony Crystal is out. Deborah Brown is not here currently. Max Disposti.
I'm here and public member.
Susan Friedman. Susan?
I believe I've seen her.
I'm here and I am a public member. Keep
Very good.
muting.
Oh, sorry. Diana Herwick.
I'm here, LPC member.
Christopher Jones.
I'm here, LEP member.
Great. Jonathan Maddock is absent today. Kelly Runasinghe.
I'm here, public member.
Thank you. John Sovic.
Here, my pronouns are he, him, and I'm an LMFT member.
Very good. Wendy Strack.
I'm here and I'm a public member.
And Christina Wong.
Christina Wong, LCSW member.
Thank you, Max. That establishes a quorum.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you, Steve. So at this point, since we have a quorum, we are moving to our item number 10 for our agenda for today, which is actually my chair report. I have a few things very important to report, actually. The first one is that Steve Sodergren was actually selected as our executive office for the public. We established a committee about around October, I believe, after our Keep Medicine left office. And we had Steve as a temporary interim, executive office in the meantime that we were doing the search. We interviewed a lot of candidates. There was a selection committee, and the board I think in January, we decided to make the final selection for Steve. So congratulations, Steve, for being our new EO. We're really looking forward to continue to work with you since we have done this work for some years already. And so that's my first announcement. The second one actually has to do with the introduction of a new board member that we have here today. And just would like to take a few minutes to give a warm welcome to Yvette Willis. Hi, Yvette, as a new board member. Yvette was appointed by the governor on January 21st, 2021 as a public member. Yvette, you're more than welcome to share a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself to the board and the public.
Great, thank you so much, Max and Steve. My name is Yvette Caceres Willis. I am a public member I am from a tiny Texas border town of about 10 miles from Mexico. It's called San Juan, Texas, and it's in the Rio Grande Valley. I went to the University of Texas at Austin, and after graduating, I moved to Houston, Texas. And so in my professional life, I have spent over 15 years in professional sports, not playing sports, but actually working behind the scenes in the marketing, community relations, sales, and fundraising capacity. So I moved from Austin to Houston, Houston back to Austin, I think I went to Boston, back to Austin, and I think I ended up in Houston and spent several years there working with all of the pro sports teams. I pivoted the last couple of years. I decided that I wanted to do something different. So I started working with startups and entrepreneurs, and that was very rewarding. And fate would have it that I moved to Silicon Valley. Maybe that was just a coincidence. My husband had accepted a position with Stanford Medicine and Stanford University, so I live in Palo Alto now. I had my heart set on working in professional sports again, maybe working with startups in sports. And the pandemic hit, and that didn't happen. So with my experience of working on several boards and doing a lot of community service, I decided that this was my time to help my little corner of the world. And I still hold I'm transitioning out of a leadership position in Texas with a leadership organization. I just got appointed the president of the University of Texas Alumni Association for San Francisco in the Bay Area. And now I have the honor to serve here on the Board of Behavioral Services, and I couldn't be more thrilled. I am married, I've got 2 children, and like I said, I'm new to California, and I'm excited, and thank you for the opportunity.
Wow, thank you, Yvette. Thank you so much for your introduction. I see Houston, Boston, Austin, and then Palo Alto kind of broke the rhythm of phonetically rhyme.
But I'm learning real fast. West Coast, best coast.
Well, we know that. We live here. But anyway, thanks for your introductions. Really a pleasure to meet you. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but after that excellent introduction, I have to take you for roll call. I'm sorry, Yvette. I did not call your name. I apologize. So,
oh, wow.
Yvette Willis, are you here?
I'm here, and I'm a public member.
Quorum is established. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Maybe I should have paid attention myself. I didn't realize that. Thank you so much for catching that. So we're now moving agenda item 10B, which has to do with board member activities. This is just pretty much since last meeting in November, if there are any activities from my fellow board members that you have participated that you would like to share with the full board. It could be a conference, obviously not an in-person one, outreach events that you have attended to that maybe might be of interest on the board. And of course, this is strictly voluntary. So if there is anything you would like to share, this is the moment to do it. Yes, John.
So I was honored in early February to speak at the Trans Wellness Conference, which was done online. It was a 2-day event for both professionals and for people who are both families and going through lived experience. I was there to speak about providing the best mental health wellness care for our trans youth.
Thank you so much, John. That's it. Yes, I heard about that conference. I couldn't make it myself, so I'm really glad you were there and bringing your expertise to that to the team. So thank you so much. Anyone else? So I tried to put a visual so I can see you all, but I don't see anyone else. In case the moderator can, I believe we are all okay and good to go. So at this point, if there are no other comments from my fellow board members, we can move on the agenda item 11, which is public comments for items that are not on the agenda. Just as a reminder to the public, the board might not discuss or take any actions on any matter raised during this public comment section, except to decide whether to place the matter on the agenda of a future meeting. Please remember to use the raise hand function if you would like to make a comment. Our moderator will monitor that, and each commenter will be allowed 2 minutes. Moderator, I need your help in case I'm missing anyone from the public that would like to speak.
This is the moderator. I've just opened the Q&A feature at the request of the board. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, please click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen. In the Ask field, type, I would like to make a comment, and make sure it goes to all panelists. I do have an individual identified as Ben Cadwell who would like to make a comment. Ben, I'm going to unmute your microphone in just a moment, and you will have 2 minutes.
Thank you, moderator, and welcome, Ben.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. 2 very quick things. First of all, simply congratulations, Steve, on your appointment as executive officer. That's good news to hear. And then secondly, a request for a future agenda item. It would be nice to have a larger discussion summary of the disciplinary process. And I say that because in response to a data request several months ago, Kim was kind enough to provide me with some data about the disciplinary process, and it seems like a lot more people are added to probation each year than actually successfully complete their probation. It would be interesting to have a conversation about why that might be, and if there are ways that we can, ensure public protection while also ensuring that people make it successfully through the rehabilitation process. Thank you.
Ben, thank you so much. Do you mind to introduce yourself? I know we all know you, but there might be someone out there that doesn't.
Sure thing, sorry.
I doubt it, but you never know.
Ben Caldwell, I'm a licensed MFT.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you so much. Moderator, I see someone else. Am I correct?
You are correct. Jennifer Alley, I will unmute your microphone right now.
Good morning, members of the board. I just wanted to make a brief comment to congratulate Steve on his appointment. We look forward to working with you in the future, so congratulations.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you so much.
At this moment, this is the moderator, co-moderator. At this moment, we don't have any further requests. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
I believe we can do that. Yes. Thank you, moderator. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now we are moving to the agenda item 13, which is our consent calendar. Does any member wish to remove any items for the consent calendar? And if not, we can move to approve the motion for the calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you, Christina. Do we have a second?
I will second.
This is Sabina. Can I clarify the motion?
The motion is to approve the agenda without any, the consent calendar, excuse me.
Correct. So the November 4th and 5th, 2020 meeting minutes, the January 29th, 2021 meeting minutes, and the February 19th, 2021 meeting minutes.
Correct. Thank you, Sabina.
I don't think actually, thanks Sabina for clarifying. I don't think we have the November 4th and 5th board minutes. So I think I will clarify my consent calendar to include, for the approval of January 29th, 2021 and February 19, 2021 board meeting minutes.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Thank you, Christina.
So that's my motion.
No wonder I couldn't find them. I thought you had them and I didn't have them.
Yes.
Wonderful. So again, can you restate the motion, Christina, is for the approval of consent calendar, including only January 21 and February 19, 2021 board meeting minutes? correct?
Yes, yes, I think Steve got it. Yeah, so it's
Right.
the 2
And
board minutes in 2021.
right. If I'm correct, there was a second from, if I didn't hear, it was Kelly. Am I right?
Yes, I will second Ms. Wong's motion.
Okay, I don't know if Christina is back with us. Otherwise, I think Steve will have to call the quorum, right? I mean, the vote.
That is for me. I will, and I will include everyone this time. So, let's go. Crystal Anthony, not. Deborah Brown's out. Yvette? Is Yvette Willis?
Yes, I approve.
Max Disposti?
Yes.
Susan Friedman?
Yes.
Diana Herwick?
Yes.
Christopher Jones?
Yes.
Thank you. And we have Kelly Runasinghe
Yes.
and John Sovic,
Yes.
Wendy Strack,
Yes.
and Christina Wong.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Wonderful. Thank you, Steve. So I believe now we're moving agenda item 14, which is our executive office report. This is the time when Steve will share with us the budget report, operations, personal report, and strategic and update. Thank you.
So, okay, great. Let's start with the budget report. So for the current year, we've expended $5,054,336, which is 41% of our current budget, and our budget is $12,470,000. This is based on current estimates that we have received from the department's financial department. Financial department. So that's kind of splits up. That's 43% of our budget was expended for personnel services and 57% for operating expense and equipment. Currently, our fund condition reflects a 3.1 month reserve, which is good, and this does take into account the new fee increase. So we're doing pretty good on our budget. Is there any questions on that? One thing that I wanted to note is usually in the past we've provided more budget documents, and DCA is in the process of utilizing a new data reporting system called Qbert. They've actually produced some really nice reports. We haven't learned yet how to actually make them completely presentable in the board packets, but before the next meeting or during the next meeting, you should see some more reports on the budget, so a little more detailed than what I'm presenting here. So the other thing I have to talk about is, as you're well aware, that we experienced an economic downturn last year, and to address that, the Department of Finance released a budget letter 2037 on November 3rd, and this required departments to realize a 5% permanent reduction in the fiscal year 21-22, so next year. We worked with the DCA, to find that 5% savings, and to achieve the savings, we looked at funds that were historically what I'm kind of terming overfunded. These were out-of-state travel was one of those, and training budget. The board has also had an allowance for a vehicle operation. That has been on our books for a long time, and we don't use any vehicles. So I think the original intent way back when was if we had inspectors out in the field, that would be there for maintenance of vehicles. So we were able to get rid of that on our budget line, reduce our out-of-state travel and training budgets. So basically, we had to make a savings of $99,000, and with some certain reductions, as you'll see in the budget report, we were able to achieve that. When we originally started the process, we were concerned that we might have to actually hold open some positions, or maybe get rid of a position to actually meet our needs. But luckily, we don't have to. The one thing too I'd like to notice on that is when we say training budget, training's a big thing, and I love training. We're cutting the budget, but we actually are relying more on the department's training, solid training department. So that budget really we usually don't make much expenses on that. We don't expend that budget. So we still will be having staff train, which is good. So luckily, it wasn't that big of an impact. The $99,000 is easy to find. So any questions on that?
No, thank you, Sid. Just a minor question from me, Max Boucher. So pretty much when we say training budget, it was $29,000. That's the remaining in the budget after the reduction of 20,000. Am I correct?
Let me bring that up. Sorry.
Oh, it's 29,000 minus 20 that was reducted. I'm just trying to.
It was reduced by 20,000. So we'll have $9,000 in the training budget. So.
Okay, that's what I was trying to read the budget as. Okay.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So, so the expenses, the expenditure, if it's up to date, it's 41%. And since it's already, in our third quarter. And so I'm wondering, whether, the low expenditure is due to maybe the vacancies that we have, because I'm just thinking about down the road, by the time, you close the boat, you don't spend the money, then, it will have to be, it will have to go somewhere. So anyway, so I'm just wondering, any explanation about like the lower, expenditure than budget, than targeted?
I mean, part of that is, we do have a lot of salary savings currently right now. We do have, as I'm going to report later, about 10 positions open currently. The other thing too is that, like I say, as this is calculated on what we have currently available. So, we're still dealing with some of the fiscal stuff it's taking some time to get some of our budget items updated. So I think that's part of the other issue too. So I'm not concerned that we were overspend, but like you say, yes, I'm not sure. Come May, we should have a better idea of how to looking at that. So
okay, that sounds good. I just want to make sure that that's we're on track, because 41% versus very likely I mean, it's budget is always rare. I just want to raise it to the attention that money needs to be spent to spend. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Thank you, Christina. Are there any other board members with any questions or observations? Okay, Steve, if you're done on this, we can move to our next item. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, I am done with that. Okay.
Wonderful. And that will be actually item 15, which is our update on our sunset review.
So Max.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Max. I'm sorry. Oh. There's a couple more. I'm sorry. I still have I've got a bunch more. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. No. That's what I was saying. Okay.
So Max.
I'm sorry. If you want to go to that, no.
So
it's early.
Max, John wants to speak. I think I saw John raise. Yeah. Okay. No. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw John raise his hand, so so I thought that he wanted.
Thank you, Christina.
You're welcome.
Okay. Next, I will run through the board statistics, or kind of the operations. As you can see, all the board statistics are there for the second quarter of fiscal year 2021. The current license population is 123,780. I don't know why I keep tripping up on that. But so that's an approximate 1% gain from last quarter. We continually have a 1% gain from each quarter, so our population keeps increasing. If you can see, if you're looking at the statistics for application, there was a significant increase in the application volumes for the Lmft and LCSW licensure and exam applications. 54% for Lmft applications and 37% for LCSW. So this was, we're thinking, a result of a Senate bill that went in 620, that was in 2015, which actually became effective January 1st, 2021. And this streamlined the categories of experience hours that needed to be had for qualify for licensure. It changed how people could count hours. To be reviewed under the old requirement applications, we had to receive all those applications by December 31st, 2020. So candidates that were concerned about the calculation of their hours under the new requirements submitted their applications early. So it was quite a bit. And the other thing that I think we did see some increases in that also is because of the fee structure. I think people wanted to take advantage of that lower fee. That being said, with Lmft and my licensing unit, they're really looking at, they're going to keep chugging along, but we're making sure that the public knows and the applicants know that there could be possibly some delays. But we're hoping not that great of a delay. And I think a lot of those people, unfortunately, will have deficiencies because they submitted early, knowing full well that they, would not maybe have the hours yet. So that's another aspect that we're looking at, how to kind of work with those deficiencies better. Our processing times for the Lmft licensure exam application as well as the AMFT initial applications have increased. I think once again we're looking at application volumes on the Lmft licensure exam, and for the AMFT it's a matter of staffing, some vacant positions and then training involved. But we will, I believe by May we will see, when the next I report, we'll see some reductions at least in the AMFT initial registration. There was significant decrease in the processing time for LCSW licensure and exam. That's the application for clinical exam. That can be attributed to we have hiring staff last year, and they are fully trained now, and that team is operating fully trained, fully staffed. So yeah, as you can see, it's nice to see that demonstration that when you're fully staffed, fully trained, you can make reductions in processing time. So. Examinations. During the second quarter, we administered 4,482 exams. This is a 7% increase from the last quarter. Exam sites are still operating at a reduced capacity to comply with the safety standards, but the issues that we had experienced last year with regarding the availability and people having trouble scheduling, it seems to have lessened. And as you can see, that 4,482 is really kind of a normal amount of a normal volume that we would usually see in pre-pandemic. So I think things are actually in the exam unit kind of getting back to normal, which is nice. The Office of Professional Examination Services, they did 7 exam development workshops in the second quarter. The other thing that I have to mention for exams is that the OPES, the Office of Professional Examination Services, will be initiating work on an occupational analysis for the LCSW profession. The purpose of the occupation analysis is to identify the important tasks performed by currently practicing LCSWs. This actually helps us in aiding and developing what we're going to do for our California Law and Ethics exam. So in the next month, OPES will be asking LCSWs to complete a questionnaire through SurveyMonkey, and the deadline for that questionnaire will be March 28th, 2021. So I'm hoping that all LCSWs who are current will be participating in that. Yes. Questions?
No, sorry. I'll make a comment after you finish, the report.
Oh, you want me to go through? Okay.
And then also, yeah, just as even for the member of the public, there will be time to ask questions as well. So I just want to make sure that everybody knew.
Yeah, I'll just go through the whole report and then we can ask questions. Sounds good.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, enforcement stats. During the second quarter, the enforcement staff received 518 consumer complaints and 335 criminal convictions. A total of 556 cases were closed, and 34 cases were referred to the Attorney General's for formal discipline. As of December 31st, 2020, there were 123 cases pending at the Attorney General's office, and a total of 16 accusations and 6 statement of issues were filed this quarter. The number of final citations for the second quarter was 13. We are picking up on that, though, on the citations. There was a total of 27 final disciplinary orders, and the average number of days to complete formal discipline in the second quarter was 389 days. The performance measures that have been established by DCA The performance measure to complete formal discipline is 540 days. So as you can see, we're doing really good there. And then the average number of days the case is with the Attorney General's office in the second quarter was 297 days. So we are doing pretty good in the enforcement unit. Outreach, as you can see, we're still busy in outreach. We're doing a lot of the LMFT outreach. I can't even think of what they're called. Sorry. Consortium meetings, LMFT consortium meetings, geez. And so we're keeping active there. I always ask people to, if they want us to attend meetings, please get in touch with us and we will be happy to attend and to talk about the EDS. Communication reports, the popularity of our Facebook page continues to increase. And the Facebook Fridays are still doing good. Website updates, we have added a new tab to our website to help navigate a little bit better. And that is an update and FAQs tab on top. And within that, you'll find different topics. Before we had all our FAQs piecemeal throughout the website. So this is kind of a centralized area now that you can get to them. We currently are still using the CIC DCA communications department to answer our phone calls, and they're doing a good job. And we continually to work closely with them in addressing situations where if they see volumes increase for certain questions, we are working with them to design scripts and such so that we can, better the process. So that's really good.
Hey, Steve.
Yes.
Max here. I just want to share really a kudos. I know you have been a very strong believer in the use of social media in relations to our board communications and to the licensees. So I've seen some of those Fridays event, and I think we're doing really good. And this is just in a matter of a year and a half, really. So I just wanted to make a note of that. That's been really a successful, it continues to grow, right? Tools that we're using. So thank you, Steve.
Well, thank you. I would like to take the credit, but it's my staff, particularly Lisa. Lisa's been doing a good job of keeping up on that, and it can be an almost full-time job, but she's doing a really good job. So, and we'll continue to expand, expand that outreach through social media. So
it's very useful. Thank you, Steve, and the staff. Thank you.
So Christina here. I'm going to jump in. Sorry that Kelly, I see your hand, so you can go after me. So I want to, again, echo with what Max say about the outreach, the Facebook. And, I talk to, I know my associates, they follow on Facebook, and they love, the posting of the processing time. And so, so I just want to, confirm and let the staff know that, this, using the social media really is a wonderful and effective method, to reach out to the, to our audience, to our associates. And so the other things that I really want to talk about, also is about the, occupational study. And so the analysis, exactly. Sorry, I wrote down Survey Monkey and then I did. Anyway, coffee hasn't kicked in yet. And so I'm wondering, if there's any, what is the plan, to make sure that the occupational analysis, can reach more of the, the social worker professional. We know that, I'm thinking that, since Lisa's, the Facebook outreach is just so amazing, so maybe there are, thoughts that not just about, relying on the professional associations to spread it out, the website, but maybe like really enhancing, that outreach through the, the social media. So it's just my suggestion.
Oh yeah, we definitely, that's definitely something that will be posted. The last time we did that, we did quite a few posts it was for the Lmft occupational analysis. So yes, we'll definitely get it out there. it will go out through our listserv, so people will get emails. So definitely, we really do want to try to get a great participation in that, and that's always our goal. So.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I so, and I also want to echo the fact that, when you said about like the processing time, when you're full staff, it really, really helps because, even my associates say, hey, my application got processed in a very timely manner. So thank you. Thanks for the stuff and thanks for your leadership.
Yeah, no problem. And I think part of the processing times too is I found out that, it is stressful when you send in an application and you don't know where it is. So we want to, at least if where we're at right now, it can give you a sense of kind of, not necessarily relief, but to know the actual facts. So we are also working on ways to kind of streamline that process because in the background, it's kind of clunky the way we do the processing date. So we've always been, on that end, really wanting to be transparent. So it can be transparent everywhere, but especially there too, getting that out on the website. So.
Thank you, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, I had a quick question.
There is another question from...
This is Kelly Renasinger.
Go ahead, Kelly.
And see, there's probably a very simple explanation for this. I was wondering why the cases are staying so long with the AGs.
It's not unusual for that to happen. They just are backed up, I think. Honestly, I can get you a better answer to that question, but it's not something that we're concerned about. It's the normal. It's kind of the norm.
Okay.
Honestly.
All right. Cool. Gotcha. Thank you.
And that's one reason that we term it nag the dag position. So we do have somebody that monitors that, and if they see that something is kind of really extended, we'll definitely reach out and keep that moving. So.
Gotcha. Thanks. And I just echo the compliments and accolades of Christina and Max on your social media and outreach.
I see Susan with her hand up.
I actually have two questions, and both of these came up when I was actually talking to the Senate Rules Committee. One thing they were very interested in was why people had a problem with Can you hear me?
Yes.
Why people had a problem in scheduling their examination, and I think that's been resolved, and I think that was because a lot of people were picking a place that was closer to where they lived or whatever. About that. And the second thing is about diversity. I know we've talked about diversity before. Everybody is talking about diversity, and I'm wondering how we're dealing with that, perhaps in social media. I'm not sure how else we ever discussed how else we could diversify, get the word out so that there was a much more diverse population out there to deal with the pandemic of mental illness or mental health, I should say, that's about to happen as soon as everything opens up.
Well, first of all, on the exam portion, yes, that was when COVID last, March through April, May, June, because of the reduction in the amount of exams that could be given, because we reduced the space availability, we were having issues with the scheduling. But because of the waivers that we put in place, which extended eligibilities out for 20 months, that loosened that helped out. Plus, some sites are starting to open now. Just got notice yesterday that Santa Clara County, we were down to 25% reduction in test space, but that's increasing up to 50% this week. So that portion, I think we kind of settled that, the exam scheduling. For diversity, we've already had 2 newsletters that went out with some articles that deal with and talk about diversity, and we'll continue that process. Looking at what we can include in our newsletters, looking at what we can, what's the proper term, tag on our Facebook page on articles by other maybe government agencies that are addressing that, so we can get kind of help to get the word out there. I mean, and that's something that we do have the strategic plan coming up. I'm hoping to focus on that and have some sort of strategic guidance on how we want to kind of really address that. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Susan. I see John Savik.
Thank you. Steve, this is John. I do have a series of questions since we decided to hold till the end, but I want to piggyback on something that Susan just brought up. I've seen some of the Facebook Lives and they are amazing and they're friendly and honest and wonderful. And yet the only face that we have representing the DBS on social media is a white woman. I just think we might want to consider, is there someone else within the DBS that can be trained to maybe take over occasionally, maybe a person from a community of color, to give another representation on social media to who we are as an organization. Just something to kind of throw into the mix as you're developing the social media plan.
That's great. Yeah, definitely.
The other thing about social media, you had mentioned that you're working with the phone bank of the DCA. When questions tend to start following a trend, that you want to write a script for them. Would it also be valuable to, when you see questions following a trend, to share that with your social media team so that they can actively bring that into the Facebook Lives or put it out on social media as well?
And that's actually something that at all management meetings and around the office, I keep stressing. If you are sensing something that's going on and you need to get the word out there, let us know. And we will definitely put, we've been utilizing Facebook page a lot more for some of those issues. And I kind of like a holistic approach too. If we get those, not only just on social media or Facebook, I want to use Facebook to post the note that something, here's the answer to the question that's coming up so much, but then drag them and direct people to our website, which will have a more concise, full description of going to the FAQs that we have so they can learn more. So it's kind of like, it's all interlinked together. So the Facebook is really the front portion to get people to, to let them know, but our website is the place where they can actually get the full information. So I think that's what we kind of look at, but we keep trying to, we've had a couple posts on the FAQs because of issues. Like in one of the ones we did was people had questions about the, doing telehealth across state lines. We put that on there. There's some other ones that were, the FAQs has instructions on Breeze. We get a ton of questions about, I'm locked out of my account. And we didn't fully address that. So we just posted, how to work with Breeze on there too. So it's kind of like a whole, it all comes together in kind of one kind of public outreach. And
well, if I could offer just one comment on that. I hear the holistic approach. You also have a really large department. It might be worth looking into actually create some type of procedure. So when one area says on Facebook Live, we've been getting this question 17 times. It goes to you, it goes to the DCA people, it prepares a script. When DCA says, we got 20 questions on the same thing this week, an automatic procedure goes to Facebook Live. You need to know this question is really on track right now, so that it actually becomes more of a procedure than just like, if you got a large department, I think that would just be something that would help if there was something in place that when a trend started showing, there was a procedure that said, this is how we share the information.
Oh, I agree. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I got another one.
Go ahead. It's okay.
So with the examination program, we were talking about second quarter that there's a drop of almost 400 people, 7% degree. We're having this decrease. And yet we're also talking about, we feel like we've resolved many of the testing problems. We only have those numbers from second quarter. Do we have any idea what the trend is like ongoing? And are we actually still responsible for trying to do some solution-based stuff? Because we are still in the middle of these limitations of how people can access their testing. And do we not need to see that and say, oh, we've solved it, but be aware there might be numbers that say it's dropping even more? and we need to be proactive in really looking at that rather than waiting necessarily for the next set of statistics to say, oh no, it dropped by another 400. Does that make sense?
And you're talking about the exam administrations?
Exam program.
Exam program, okay.
Yeah. It looks like we just had a real huge drop in stuff. And I just want us to be aware of that and be proactive rather than wait on it. We've got multiple people coming in public comments saying for a long time, this has been a challenge. I just don't want us to drop the ball and imagine that we've done everything we can, because we're going to be in this situation for quite a bit longer for many of our applicants who are going to be testing.
Well, yeah, and no, we keep track of that, and we really, it's kind of our hands are somewhat tied. We don't really, the one thing we did during COVID was work with our exam administrators to open up third-party sites, is what they call them. So that actually increased our availability of exam administrations. So we are kind of limited as to what we can actually do there. The one thing we can do, and we have done, is make sure that the communication is going out there. If we see something that's coming up with exams, or if sites are closing down, we will definitely reach out and start getting that word out there as fast as possible, so candidates kind of have an expectation and know what to expect. Honestly, I think, and I can look back at the statistics, but during the heat of the moment with the pandemic, March through, I'm looking at for the exam program, we really had that March through December was a big where we were seeing most of the issues. And I think at the lowest level we had 2,000 exams maybe being administered. 4,000 is what we saw before the pandemic. I mean, it's a normal, it's very normal. So I mean, definitely we'll look at those and continue. And if we see stuff that we can, and we definitely. Customer service is the big thing. We want to make sure that people can get in, schedule when they want to, which is getting better, and we'll try to help them along. But yeah, we will definitely keep on that. So.
And I think just be really aware of not choosing to close down third-party sites too quickly, balancing, cost savings versus the need of our people that we represent. I just wanted to be aware of that. Same line, real quick question. So are the examiners only trained to I only do LCSWs and I only do LEPs, or do they cross-train at all? So some of the LCSW people who are fully staffed right now could in some way assist on some level with the Lmft people, which are understaffed at this time.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're looking at, that's always part of the solution, and I know we do have a position that we've looked at, moving around people, and what not outreach, but cross-training is a big thing that we're looking at. And my goal is, we've for the longest time, we've really we have the Lmft, LCSW kind of siloed. I think Tim and I had started out kind of reorganizing the way the teams are. And I think the progression of that is eventually what I'm looking at is having the registrant desk and the licensing desks all cross-trained in the different, the licensing desk would be able to do any of the registration or licensing applications. Registrants would be able to do, no matter what license types, would be able to do the registrant application. So that way, so I can be, my dream is to be more agile, to, keep those processing times at an even level, or reduce. I mean, so that is a goal. And we do, when we see those, we definitely look at, who could we actually ask to come on over to do that. So.
Okay, cool. Guess what, Steve? That was my last question. Yay!
Sure.
I do have one statement I want to make, though, and this has to do with something that Susan has been very, very, bringing to the forefront all the time about this future mental health crisis as things start to open. For those of us who are currently working in the field, it's actually here. It has been here since day one of this health crisis. It's actually been around for many years before that. It's just been exacerbated by this. So I know we keep talking about future health crisis, but I really want to identify, and hopefully my other, licensed members who are in the field and doing this work are here to report that we are deep in the middle of it already. And most therapists that I know that are seeing clients are overwhelmed and overbooked. They are unable to meet the capacities of people that are calling them. Most agencies are currently swamped. And I think we keep talking about the future health crisis, but I want to identify that we are already mired deep in it for those of us who are working in the field.
Thank you, John. I actually want to echo that for those of us that deliver services. We have seen that for quite some time, and disparities have also been there because of lack of access, lack of health care access. But right now, we are all overwhelmed by the requests from small and bigger agencies. So I definitely echo that sentiment. Steve, I know you're not even in the middle of your report. Now I just realized how much I was trying to cut you off there. Since we took a little, break, for lack of a better term, for questions, maybe I would like to just go a little bit on the public, if you don't mind, to see if there are any questions for the public we've addressed so far before we proceed. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Steve. Moderator, I don't know if you are able to open the chat just in case there are any questions, observation from the public. I remind the public that there will be another opportunity as well at the end of the Steve report in case there are questions.
Thank you. This is the moderator. Members of the public, I've opened up the Q&A at the request of the board, and give me just a moment. I'll display the instructions for you.
Thank you. In the meantime, I see there's a question. Yeah.
Thank you. And yes, Chad Bacco, I will unmute your microphone in just a moment. You have been unmuted.
Thank you, moderator. And hello and good morning, members of the board. Thank you for allowing me a minute of your time. So my name is Chad Bacco. I'm actually a graduate student at the University of San Diego in their Clinical Mental Health Counseling, or LPCC, licensure program. And I am also a volunteer member of the CalPIC Legislative Board Committee. Just kind of going over and listening to some of the things that were discussed earlier, one question and comment that I do have at this point is, and I'm still kind of new to understanding the field and understanding how everything works, and so I apologize if I'm misunderstanding something at the origin of this, but I was wondering, in terms of the statistics that were listed, I didn't hear any LPCC licensure or exam rates or applications submitted, and I also noticed as the board was reciting statistics for the current session, I didn't hear anything with regards to them in there. Another thing that I was curious about is in terms of the board discussed even kind of the possibility of like that crossover, right, between LCSWs and LMFTs having that cross training in order to help prepare exams and incoming students. But I didn't hear any mention of the LPCCs on that side. And so I'm not sure if maybe I'm misunderstanding something in terms of like if the LPCC population is monitored by BBS. So again, if I'm incorrect about that, I apologize by the assumption. But I was just curious if maybe there was any, I guess, salience in terms of what I'm talking about. But again, thank you for allowing me to make the comment.
Thank you, Mr. Bacco. Steve, if you would like to address that. We can't hear you, Steve. Well, at least I can't.
There we go.
Okay.
Moderating. So, Chad, you know what? They are included in that. I'm sorry. It's just that sometimes we get into the speak of LCSW and LMFT and LEP, we forget, and LPCC. Just because right now, I think what we were talking about was the increase in applications. LPCCs didn't really necessarily see that great of an increase, but they are. When we talk about that, we are including them. And in fact, actually, statistically, if you look at our material that we put out, LPCCs are growing quite a bit. So, in the future, maybe I'll end up accidentally talking or just completely talking about LPCCs and forget naming the others. But it's just a matter of what we were talking about at the time. But they are included in all that, and especially with the cross training and stuff too. I hope that, does that answer your question?
Okay, Steve, I don't know if the...
Oh.
I don't know if Ms. Vaco will be able to respond, because usually when we place a question, we don't go back and forth, but yeah.
Okay.
So I see there is also another question, which is from Sierra Smith.
Good morning. This is Sierra Smith. I'm the Executive Director of Open Path, which is a counseling center and clinical training agency based in Los Angeles, particularly focusing on communities of color in SPA 6, for those of you who are familiar, although we serve all of Los Angeles. And I really just wanted to say how much I appreciate the fact that you are all still persistently addressing diversity and inclusivity in how you're building out. And, you know, one of the frameworks that we work from is really recruiting clinicians from the communities that we serve. And we tend to hover about 60 to 70% of our clinicians identifying as people of color at any given time. And it is still feedback that I hear from them that representation does matter. So as you work at figuring out, you know, how there's different folks from different backgrounds on the Facebook page and in all the different ways, it really is critical, because the other thing I'm seeing as there's been a push towards decolonizing therapy and making it more inclusive is I'm seeing more and more people of color who go and get their master's in psychology and go through the training, but choose not to become licensed because of the restrictiveness of how it allows them to practice in communities of color, where sometimes there might be more expansive ways of how therapy is viewed. And so I say that just looking at that platform, that I'm seeing that more and more from some of the clinicians that are out here in Los Angeles. They have all the training, they have the education, but they're choosing not to get licensed because they are still finding it restrictive. So I just share that to say that maybe there's a way to make it more expansive so that it does feel like everyone can be included in licensure and still appropriately serve the communities that we're working with. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that comment. Thank you for pointing that out. I am going to, there is a question actually on the chat box, so I maybe I can read it back to you, Steve, if it's okay. So it's, this is from Lisa Soriano, and she said, good morning. I'm wondering if once the LCCW applications are processed through December 31st, 2020, do you anticipate that January 2021 applications that are received will be able to possibly process any quicker? And thank you for everything. Steve, we can hear you.
There you go. I got three screens here, so when I try to unmute, it gets a little difficult. So we will, you know, all I can really respond to that is we're processing as fast as possible. I haven't looking at the amount of applications received after January. It's probably lessened, so I think that you'll see those processing times, I mean, either stay at where they are right now, but we will, you know, we want to get these out of here as fast as possible. We don't want you having to wait, especially when you want to get that last clinical exam done. So we will be working hard on that.
Okay, thank you, Steve. I don't see any other questions in the queue at the moment, so maybe I would suggest to move on with the report, and then at the end of the full report, we can, unless there are board members that have particular specific questions about your sharing, then we will ask again the public to chime in at the end. Okay?
Okay. I'll move on to the personnel report. Is that okay? That sounds good?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So since our last meeting, we've only hired one new employee, and that was Lisa Santillan. She joined our board and is serving as our enforcement technician, supporting the probation monitors and citation and fine. She's working as our citation and fine analyst, and she is from this private sector, and I know she's doing a great job because I keep getting citations on my desk. So Lisa, keep up the good work. We had some pretty big departures, as you know. Kid Madsen officially retired in December. Also, Marcia Gov retired in December. I think a lot of applicants, licensees know that name. Marcia had been with the state for 30 years and had been with the board since 2006. And she's worked in various teams around the board, from cashiering to exam, where she was finally working in exam. So we miss her. She was kind of that, I kind of look at her as that MacGyver. If something had to be done and she knew how to do it, and she could get in there and fix the problems. And then she was also kind of, we called her Mama Marcia, because she was the party planner and the person that was always the first to congratulate people or celebrate events, so birthdays or Father's Days, and there's always little gifts from Marcia around the office. So we really do miss her. And I formally want to, we will formally be presenting something at the meeting so that we can really memorialize that. Jonathan Burke, who was our discipline and probation manager, decided to leave. He's been with us since 2018. I'm not too upset though, because he did accept a promotion. He is now the assistant executive officer with the Board of Psychology. So congratulations to him. So in total, we have, then we have the assistant executive officer vacancy most recently. So in all total, we have 10 vacant positions in various states of recruitment. My goal is by the next board meeting, we will be fully staffed. I'm hoping. Cross my fingers. So strategic, and any questions on personnel?
I don't have a question, but I think, Steve, I just want to, make a correction that I think, the board doesn't just hire, one person, but, but also promoted you, as
Yes, there was a promotion.
It is a promotion, and it is a new appointment. So, please give yourself some credit.
I hate reporting on myself. I've been promoted. Thank you, board. I appreciate that. Although now I have to go recruit. Thanks for the extra work. I appreciate the extra work. Thank you. So it'll be a fun recruitment process. Thank you. That's all I really have for personnel.
Okay, let's move on to the 14th. Yeah.
Yeah, so the strategic plan. Our strategic plan is ending this year, the one that we created in 2018. So because of that, I met with Solid to kind of kick off the strategic planning process. My goal is that we'll have something in place by the end of the year. This first process of that is to do the environmental scan, or some people might know it as the SWOT analysis. And that is surveys will go out to staff, stakeholders, interviews will be had with board members and board management, so we can identify our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This is going to begin hopefully during the end of March. The survey might come out. Interviews and such might be conducted in April. And I'm thinking that if it all goes well, in June or July, the board and possibly board management will be sitting down to kind of craft the final version of the strategic plan. As you can see, the updates attached to the strategic plan updates there for you to review. And we've, I think that the goals that we had set that were pretty concrete goals, we've pretty much reached, it looks like. And we are continuing on with all the other goals that we have, set forth. So COVID kind of put us back on a little bit, but I think a lot of those ongoing goals we are still working on. So I'm kind of really excited. It's kind of a great opportunity, starting out fresh and new in the position. I'm hoping that we can really craft a great strategic plan that I can use as a tool for, see what vision you guys want for the future and work towards that. So I'm excited about that process. Any questions on the strategic plan?
Steve,
go ahead, Max.
Sorry. No, I just wanted to make a comment, even because we have a great part of this board that's new. This is a very exciting moment, because this is the opportunity for us thinking about inclusion and diversity, but also how to be really intentional about the changes that we're bringing and how the strategic planning can incorporate and reflect that. I remember, was that 3 years ago? I forgot the time. When we worked in the previous strategic plan, this is really the opportunity for us. And I remember that part is when we advocated for more social media, right? And reach out to the community. And I believe the majority of the strategic plan goals that we assessed a few years ago, they were all met. And in some cases, even beyond meeting them. So I just wanted to share with our board members that there will be a great opportunity for us to really dive into every single objective and goals of the strategic planning once it comes to us. So to be prepared also to have this opportunity to really make sure that the vision for the next few years, in consideration also of the times that we're living through, COVID, the disparities, everything has been touched today and in the past, can actually be reflected in this live documents, which is really, the boat that steers the storm as we go through this new challenging times. So I'm really excited for that. I just wanted to share that with the rest of the team. So yes, and then Christine, I'm sorry I cut you.
Oh,
I think you
like,
wanted to say, yeah.
You are chair. So, and thanks, Max, for the information. Pretty much echo what I want to say. It is really a wonderful opportunity, and for the board, to really set the direction for the next few years. And so, I truly encourage not just about the board members, but it's also open for the public. So, professional organizations, stakeholders, students, or whoever, they really definitely more welcome to join. And so, so that will becomes like the blueprint, of what the boards, want to accomplish in a few years. And I also want to check in with Steve. What is the schedule? Because I didn't find it in my documents.
Oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't in. Okay.
Yeah, so I just want to.
I'll send that out afterwards, and maybe I can see if I maybe attach to the website too. But yeah, so that's kind of what I was saying. In March and April, we're looking at doing a SWOT analysis of the survey, and then after in May, Solid will compile all that information, and they do a really good job of presenting that information. And one thing, talking about that, I would definitely encourage any stakeholders that are listening, or please pass the word around. That survey is going to come out in SurveyMonkey. We had a really good participation last time, but even though it was really good, we only got 500 responses, and I really want to hear from everybody. I mean, tell us what you think about us. Tell us what you think we need to improve on. I really want to do that. So if you can encourage your fellow licensees or stakeholders, please get them to take that survey. I know we will blast it out. So yeah.
Yeah, that would be very helpful, because it looks like, it's going to be like, different stages to involve different people. And it looks like, you definitely want to head, towards the direction of presenting, the results, to the board member. So finally, you can have the board member to really, consider, all aspects.
Yeah.
I really like that preparation. And so, so I think, board members, you can also help, encourage, whatever, at a different stage, the appropriate people to participate. I think that would be super, super awesome. So thank you. And I see Kelly, John, and Susan's hand. So Max, back to you.
Yes. Kelly, you go first.
No, I'm sorry. My hand was up automatically and I never put it down. I apologize.
Okay. It's okay. It happens. I believe Susan.
Yeah, I meant to ask this before we moved on to the strategic plan, but are we recruiting for somebody to fill your previous spot, Steve?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely.
And then I apologize. I believe there was nobody else from the board, right?
John?
Oh, John. Sorry, John.
I know it's challenging when we're in this format. Hey, Steve, I do think we really need to make an effort to, when like we put out some of this initial stuff for a strategic plan, especially if you're going to be like doing online surveys, it's also to recognize that we may have social and economic blocks where people having access to online services. So to make sure that we find or explore ways that we could reach out to those communities as well. And in the process, also maybe like, we had the person from Open Path talking earlier, can we find ways to connect to like leaders in different communities? Kelly may have some knowledge on this too. To try and encourage a lot more input from communities that may not have the assumed access that we kind of sit in.
No, that is a great suggestion. I will look into that and see. I like the idea. I mean, I can almost see like open forums to talk about. Unfortunately, there's some restrictions on just the timing and stuff, but I definitely will look at that to see if we can. There's got to be. Thank you for bringing that up. The access to we do forget about that sometimes. And I think there was a comment made before about the licensees who don't have internet too. I mean, we got to really take that in consideration because you do want those voices heard. I will do some research on that to see what we can do.
Right. I can also follow up with you, Steve, as well. I appreciate it. And, John is right. For instance, tribal communities, border communities, rural communities, which tend to be much more insular.
Yeah. No, that's a great suggestion.
And Steve, once we're getting closer, I will make a commitment to you right now that I will try and get information on access out to my LGBTQ community.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah. In piggybacking that, thank you, Steve, and I mean, John and Kelly, I also think it's important to understand the role as board members, that it's also our duty to make sure, like John just shared with us, the opportunity to make sure that this strategic plan is also shared as widely as possible and bring it into the community that we represent, that we work with the associations of they are present here today, making sure that really it's a living doc, and so that we can make it more accessible and so that people really have something to say about it, so that we can actually make them part of the process. So definitely even our board can do a lot of work in that regards, so that we can all be part of this process and not just our staff. So thank you, John, for that. Steve, back to you. And we can hear you.
Sorry, one more thing on the strategic plan. Just want to make sure. So board members, you will be getting interviewed as part of the process for you. And then the other part is we will do 1 or 2 workshops where we actually will sit down and we'll look at the goals and create some action items and such on that. So and we can go forward on that. So that'll be in July. So that's it for my strategic plan update. And I think that's all I have. Any other questions to follow up? Or?
Right. Just want to make sure I don't cut you off again on your report. I have so many documents on my screen. I think you're completed your overall report before going into the sunset review, correct?
I believe the next item, I'm having the same issues. It's the next item on the agenda is
the sunset review.
Update on sunset review. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. Before we get there, because I promised the public I was going to go back to them with further questions on your previous report. So I see the moderator is already giving that opportunity. Thank you, moderator. And if we can open the chat box and see who's willing to speak or share on this item.
Thank you. This is the moderator. Members of the public, I've opened up the Q&A feature at the request of the board. If you would like to participate, the instructions are on the screen for your reference. Click on the Q&A icon and type, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists.
Thank you, moderator. I don't see any comments. So,
no. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Thank you for confirming that. Yeah, at this point, I will move on. We can conclude this portion of the agenda item, and we can move on with the next agenda items and introductions of the sunset. Thank you, Steve.
Great. So the sunset review. We're almost there. So in December of 2019, the board submitted its final sunset review report to the Assembly and Senate Business and Professions Committee. Due to pandemics, we were hoping that we were going to be going up before the committee in March, but that got delayed till November 18th, 2020. So in preparation for the hearing, the board was asked to provide a supplemental sunset report to highlight any additional changes or accomplishments that had occurred since we first submitted our sunset report. And additionally, after the sunset hearings were held, we were asked to respond to issues and recommendations that were raised by the committee. It's a pretty normal process. And so the next step is the legislature will run a bill to extend our sunset date further. Hopefully, it can be 2 to 4 years. We are hoping for 4 years, which is usually what we get. And we'll keep monitoring that. Part of that process, really, there's 11 issues that were raised. One of those issues really is just the normal, it's not really an issue, it's should the board still be, should the board sunset or should they still continue their operations? I answered yes on that one. So really there was 10 issues that were raised. And really the 10 issues that were raised, we're all currently working on them. There was a lot about supervision, which we're working on in our supervision regulations and statutes, and we're currently working on that. There's questions about telemedicine. We have the telehealth committee working on that. So we looked pretty good. So I think there was really no shocking issues raised. They were being addressed by staff already or had been addressed. So I will take any questions on that if anybody has any.
So, Steve.
Go ahead, Christina. Go ahead.
Okay. So so when do we know that, from the Senate committee that the length of time that BBS will be granted for, for this, before next sunset period?
Yeah, it's so that will come out in the bill. It will have the extension date on that. And I think usually, I don't know if Roseanne can.
I can chime in on that one.
Yeah.
So the bill has already been introduced as a spot bill. It's SB 801. But it's just a spot bill right now. It doesn't look like much of anything. It will be amended probably at the end of March or early April. Once it was just introduced, it has to sit for 30 days with no amendments. I would expect that my hope, although COVID has thrown everything a little off from normal, normally we would know by the May meeting and the board will take a position on the bill at that time. So that's what we're hoping for.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roseanne.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions? I would like to suggest after this, before we move to Roseanne, perhaps a 10 minutes break. Any other further questions in regards to the sunset review? Okay, moderator, if you can move to the public, I would like to see if there are any questions from the public. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the moderator. I'm going to display the instructions on the screen for members of the public who would like to participate. I've opened up the Q&A feature as well. Just click on the Q&A icon, type I would like to make a comment, and send it to all panelists.
Thank you, moderator.
Thank you.
Okay. There seem not to be any questions in regards to the sunset review. At this point, I would like to re-adjourn in about 10 minutes, coming back at 10:02 a.m. and so that we can take a quick break. Thank you, Steve. And next will be Roseanne Helps. Thank you.
So I show we have Member Wong, Member Ranasinghe, and Member Willis are back with us. How about Member Friedman, are you with us? Dr. Herwick? I see Member Sovic. I see Member Jones.
We are almost there.
I see Member Strack.
Perfect. It looks like we have everybody back in. And
I do not see Member Friedman or Dr. Herwick.
Dr. Herwick is here with us.
Oh, she is there. See, it just was bouncing all around on me.
I could start dancing so you don't miss me.
We have 8.
Christina and Max.
Until Member Friedman joins us back, we have 8 present.
Thank you, Moderator. That means we have a quorum. Christina, I know you were asking a question.
I just wanted to let you know that I emailed the strategic plan schedule just a few moments ago. My apologies for skipping over that document when I emailed you a few weeks back. But I just sent that schedule, so you can go ahead and take a look at that.
Thank you, Christina. Christina, for some reason, I think you have a feedback on your mic. So if you don't mind, or maybe it's not you. So yeah, it was you.
It was me?
Yes. Okay, so welcome back, everyone. It's 10:04, and we are resuming this public session, the Board of Behavioral Sciences. My name is Max Disposti, pronounced he, him. I'm the board chair, and we were actually about to move to our next agenda item, which is item 16. Roseanne will introduce this item that has to do with a discussion and possible action regarding the Advocacy Committee recommendations. Thank you, Roseanne. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Max. And if it's okay with Max, I'm actually going to flip-flop item 16B. I'm going to take that first, and then we're going to go on to 16A because we have a stakeholder that would like to speak on 16B that needs to leave a little early today. So I'm going to be talking about 16B, which is the required coursework, prognosis versus treatment planning.
Thank you, Roseanne. Good.
Okay, perfect. So regarding this topic, in 2019, we had an omnibus bill. It was SB 786. It was signed into law and became effective. And the board sponsored an amendment to the education and experience sections of the LPCC and LMFT code, where it talks about the course requirements in assessment, diagnosis, and prognosis. And the board proposed an amendment to replace the term prognosis with the term treatment planning, because at the time the board believed that treatment planning is a more accurate representation of the course of psychotherapy. So that became law, and the requirement for LMFTs and LPCC applicants to have coursework in assessment, diagnosis, and prognosis instead became courses in assessment, diagnosis, and treatment planning. And so while the intention on that was to make the law more accurate, stakeholders have alerted the board of a possible unintended consequence. They've noted that based on recent discussions with other stakeholder groups and other mental health professionals, that those professions might be interpreting the law change as meaning that LMFTs and LPCCs are not permitted to perform prognosis at all. Staff does not believe that this was the board's intent. The board was simply trying to update the law to current practices, but that is how it's being interpreted. So I have in attachment E, I have an email request from Dr. Ben Caldwell explaining, it does a really great job of explaining the issues that have been encountered. And then attachment B contains proposed language. So should the board decide to proceed, what the recommendation is on the table from the Policy and Advocacy Committee is that Business and Professions Code section 4986, 4980.36, 4980.37, 4980.81, 4999.32, and 499.33 should be amended to add the term prognosis back where it was previously deleted. So it would now be included along with treatment planning. So we're not proposing to remove treatment planning. We're just proposing to put prognosis in there along with it. So the proposed amendments that were recommended by the Policy and Advocacy Committee are shown in attachment D. So that's the recommendation on the table for discussion today, and I will turn it back over to Max.
Thank you, Roseanne. What I would like to do, usually we ask board members to chime in, but since we have an advocate of this change in our audience, perhaps I would like to go straight to them. I believe it's Ben, right? Am I correct?
Yes, this is the moderator. I'm actually going to promote him to a panelist so that you guys can have that conversation with him.
Thank you so much, moderator. I was just about to ask you that. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Roseanne. Yeah, the letter, I hope, kind of spells out what the issues are here. Basically, MFTs and LPCCs do engage in prognosis at times that are not directly linked with treatment planning. I don't think when this initial change was made in the law that anybody was intending to limit the scope of LMFTs or LPCCs. And similarly, by re-adding the term prognosis there, we're not trying to increase the scope of LMFTs or LPCCs. This is very much a technical clarification about what we've been doing within our scope up to this point. I just want to make sure there's no room for kind of misunderstanding. And I give a couple of examples in the letter. One of them is if you have an LMFT or an LPCC who is engaging in expert witness testimony, we might issue a prognosis as part of that. Similarly, in the process of discharge summaries for clients in particular settings, we might issue a prognosis partly to indicate medical necessity for continued care. That's not necessarily treatment planning, but it is prognosis and it does have value. I want to make sure that MFTs and LPCCs can continue to do that. I'm happy to address any questions from the board. I appreciate the favorable recommendation from the policy committee.
Yes.
I have a question.
Okay, who's that? Sorry?
This is public member Kelly Runasinger.
Okay, Kelly, thank you so much. Thanks, I couldn't see you. Go ahead.
Dr. Caldwell, I read your letter and I did have a quick question. Do you have, first of all, are you aware of any case law that interprets prognosis or treatment planning? And second of all, do you have any specific examples of situations where a clinician has been confused about the definitions of those two terms?
Thank you. I'm not aware of case law on this issue, and the action here is primarily meant to be proactive. So I have had conversations with a couple of instructors from around the state who've been confused by the change, but I'm not aware of situations where, for example, expert witness testimony has been disallowed on the basis of this change in law. We're trying to be preventive here.
Thank you, Kelly. Any other questions from the board to Ben or observation? John Sobek.
Hey, Ben, this is John Sobek, LMFT, pronouns he, him. When you're looking at this, putting prognosis back in, does this fall under scope of practice for LMFTs, or does it fall under scope of competence? How do you see that laying out?
So it fundamentally is a scope of practice issue in terms of the activities that MFTs and LPCCs are allowed to do under the law. There's that clause in the scope of practice language saying that we are allowed to apply our training in accordance with these sections of law. Obviously, scope of competence is also an ethical issue. We don't want people issuing prognoses that they are not competent to issue. And that would be true of anything that somebody doesn't have the training experience to do. But fundamentally here, you know, if we look at the reasoning behind asking for this to be put back in, it is a scope of practice issue through that application clause in the scope of practice.
So this is Christina. So just to, probably supplement what Ben has said and Roseanne has explained, actually, the word prognosis has been, in the practice law for a very long time. And so adding the treatment planning, it's more like an update. And then we left, the prognosis out. And then really it's about like, adding, putting it back in. And so, so when you look at it in this way, it's actually, the treatment planning is actually the updating version, but prognosis has been existent, for a very, very long time before we just took it out. So I hope it makes sense to you.
Thank you, Christina. Actually, I wanted to add to that. I remember this conversation 2 years ago. There was actually, sometimes you really never know about the intended consequences. It was extremely technical in regards to the consistencies between the language in other documents and law documents that were created. And we felt like that we needed to create, obviously, a base of consistencies. But by removing the term completely, if it creates any possible misinterpretation or confusion, I'm all about reintroducing both back into the document so that there is not, they can be used interchangeably without creating any confusion for our licensees. So I think it's good to look into that. Absolutely. I agree with the proposed changes. Any other comments, observation from the board? I'm browsing around to see if there are anyone with your. Okay. I would
like to make a motion.
Okay.
Time. So I would like to make a motion to direct staff to make any discussed changes and any non-substantive changes and pursue as a legislative proposal.
Thank you, Christina. I'll second that unless yes, I'll second that. I wasn't sure if someone else wanted to second. And any further discussion? Sam, would you like to add anything to this?
No, I will, if the motion's approved, I will pursue the amendment either in this year's Omni bill or possibly in our board's sunset bill, whichever Senate Business and Professions Committee prefers.
Thank you, Roseanne. Okay, at this point, we can call for the quorum, for the vote.
Max, this is Sabina. Can we take some public comment first?
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks. Yeah,
I'll turn it over to the moderator.
Yes, thank you. I assumed that with Ben over there, it was all open. So no, thank you. Moderator?
This is the moderator. We have opened the Q&A panel for requests for public comment. If you'd like to make a public comment, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen. Type, I would like to make a comment into the text field and submit that to all panelists. Our first comment comes from Jennifer Alley. Jennifer, your line is open and you will have 2 minutes.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to comment on this important issue. This is Jennifer Alley with the California Association of Marriage and Family Therapists, and we do support this change and appreciate the thoughtful discussion of the board this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And then I see Rebecca Gonzalez. Hi, Rebecca.
Rebecca, you will have 2 minutes. Rebecca, your line is unmuted.
Oh, sorry, I was facing the wrong computer. Rebecca Gonzalez with the National Association of Social Workers, California chapter. And I apologize for not contacting Roseanne before this meeting, but I do wonder if it would be possible to put the word prognosis in our code, or if that would be a different process altogether. Because I know the board usually strives for consistency among the professions, and I think it would make sense. Thank you.
Hi, Rebecca. That would need to be considered as a separate item, but it's definitely something that we can add to future agenda topics.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rebecca. Always good to hear from you. Anyone else?
Yes, we have a comment from Chad Vaco. Your line is unmuted. You will have 2 minutes.
Thank you. And again, thank you, board members, for allowing me the opportunity to make a comment on this. Again, this is Chad Bacco, student representative for the CalPIC Legislative Board Committee. We also would like to say that we second this bill.
Wonderful. I don't see anyone else on our...
Nope, with that, that's the last of our requests. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, moderator.
It is closed.
Sabina, thank you so much for making sure that our public had a place to express their opinion. I completely missed that. So we have a motion on the table and a second, and I think we can call for the vote. Christina, would you mind to do that?
Yes. Max Disposti?
Yes.
Susan Friedman?
Yes.
Diana Herwick?
Yes.
Christopher Jones?
Yes.
Kelly Ranasinghe?
Yes.
John Sobek?
Yes.
Wendy Strack?
Yes.
Christina Wong?
Yes.
And Yvette Willis?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And motion moved. Okay, Roseanne, I think we are going back to the original item, right, on the agenda?
Yes, that is correct. So I'm going back to 16A now, which is the discussion of the practice setting definition bill proposal and possible amendments to that bill proposal. So the board is currently sponsoring a bill to better define its practice setting definitions where it's licensees, trainees, and associates, the different settings that those individuals work in. It's been introduced now. It is currently AB 690. It's being run by Assembly Member Arambula. And the current text of that bill is shown in attachment A of the packet. So we're, like I said, we're really trying to provide additional clarity as to where trainees may work, what constitutes a private practice, because there's not a clear definition in the board's laws right now of what that is. And then we're hoping that by doing these things, we're going to provide less confusion about where trainees and associates may work. So it will open opportunities for more individuals to gain supervised experience. The board attempted to run this bill last year. However, due to COVID, as you know, everything had to be kind of cut short. So unfortunately, due to that, the bill was not able to move forward. But the board in its November meeting approved the staff run for this bill again this year. So that's what we're doing. However, after further review and some feedback from stakeholders, staff brought the bill back to the February 5th Policy and Advocacy Committee for discussion of 2 potential amendments. So I'll briefly summarize the amendments and I'll go into a little bit more detail on both of them after I do that. So we have Amendment 1 would be deleting the provision in the 3 Practice Acts that's proposed in this bill right now that provide that an entity that is licensed or certified by a government regulatory agency to provide healthcare services shall not be considered a private practice setting. That was something that was considered before, and we've kind of had some second thoughts on that. And then the second amendment would be to discuss modifying the provision proposed regarding supervisors in a private practice or a professional corporation to provide psychotherapeutic services to clients at the same site as the associate that they are supervising. So I'll discuss that a little bit in a minute. Because we have a lot of new members, I'm going to briefly go over kind of the main points of the bill. The current bill proposal classifies all settings that our practitioners may work in into 2 sites. We have exempt settings and non-exempt settings. Exempt settings is this, we're not changing that definition. And an exempt setting is a school, college, a university, or an institution that's nonprofit and charitable. And you do not, under California law, technically need a license to work in those types of settings. You do need to gain experience hours, but you don't need it to practice. So the bill also carves out two further definitions of very specific types of non-exempt settings. It carves out private practice as a type of non-exempt setting and a professional corporation as a type of non-exempt setting. And the definition, those 2 definitions are used to place certain additional restrictions and public oversight on those particular types of settings, because it is thought that a little bit more oversight is needed in private practices and professional corporations. Another thing that the bill proposes doing that's kind of a big step in terms of what we allow for supervision is it would now permit contracted supervisors in a private practice or a professional corporation. If in these settings, the supervisor provides psychotherapeutic services to clients at the same site as the associate. Previously, in current law right now, we don't permit contracted supervisors in private practice. The supervisor needs to work at the site. So that is a change. So that's what the bill proposal currently does. Now I'm going to go into the two amendments. So with potential amendment number 1, Business and Professions Code sections 4980.06B for LMFTs, 4996.14.2B for LCSWs, and 4999.26B for LPCCs currently state or are proposing that an entity that is licensed or certified by a government regulatory agency to provide healthcare services shall not be considered a private practice setting. After further discussions, we kind of feel like this sentence is too broad and it could have some unintended consequences. So we wanted to bring it back to discuss further. The original reasoning when the board first, when the supervision committee and then the board discussed this allowance is that it seemed like it would be okay because it's thought that existing government oversight provides additional public protection. So licensed and certified entities are not subject to the same concerns about lack of oversight as other private practices and professional corporations are. However, upon further thought, there's some government agencies that are very good at their oversight. There's others that are intended for different things or they just don't have the same level of funding. There's a wide variety of government oversight agencies out there that might broadly qualify somebody under this definition to not be considered a private practice. And it's unknown what if they adequately provide the desired level of supervision or not. So I included a link in the attachments at the end of this memo for reference 1. It's a link to an interesting report by the California Healthcare Foundation. And a few key takeaways from the report. It kind of did a really great job of summarizing the various state agencies that provide healthcare regulatory oversight. Some of the big players are the California Department of Public Health and the Department of Healthcare Services. And I think that's kind of what we were really thinking when we discussed this initially. There's also other settings. There's a Department of Social Services and Department of Aging. Federal and local governments sometimes also have a role. Some of these agencies also do both licensing and certifications, and it's kind of unclear what level of oversight, what the difference in the oversight is there. And then the other point that the report made was that the frequency, intensity, and resources for the regulatory agency to regulate, it varies widely across these agencies. And the board really doesn't have the expertise to know how well these agencies are doing their job or what they're doing. So we're kind of delegating our responsibility for consumer protection to this sentence. There's a concern we're delegating the responsibility to agencies where we're not really sure if that's exactly their same goal or if they're funded well enough to do it. So at the February 5th meeting, the Policy and Advocacy Committee discussed the issue and recommended the board consider deleting this provision. So that's the first amendment. And then I'm going to move on to the second amendment, and then we can kind of discuss everything one by one. The second amendment is kind of a different area in the law. It has to do with the provisions in the LMFT, LCSW, and LPCC laws that requires supervisors in a private practice or a professional corporation to provide psychotherapeutic services to clients at the same site as their associate. So I've included the current bill language in the packet, and then we'll kind of work from there. So with this language, especially the language that requires the services provided to clients at the same site as the associate, Kaiser has raised some concerns about that language because it frequently employs associates who are gaining experience toward licensure, and they're split into 3 different entities. Kaiser has 2 entities that employ associates that qualify as an exempt setting because they're a nonprofit corporation, so it's nonprofit and charitable. And then they have another setting called the Permanente Medical Group which is a professional corporation. And so it's treated as a private practice. It's subject to all of the extra supervision requirements. And so when they have their associates sometimes working across at these various sites, it gets very difficult to determine. They see an inequity in how people are being treated somewhat differently in terms of their supervision. ASW is working for the professional corporation arm of Kaiser. Believe it's unfair they have limits on their required supervision for gaining experience hours that others don't have. So as currently drafted, the bill proposal would partly resolve this issue, but not entirely. Under the current proposal, for Kaiser, for individuals working for their professional corporation, they would now be able to arrange for contracted supervisors to supervise their associates, instead of only right now they must have full-time employees supervising. So that's one benefit. A supervisor would be required to see clients at the same site as their associate, but they would no longer be required to be employed full-time there. And then they would also be limited to 6 supervisees per supervisor, which is up from the current 3 that's allowed. So there's kind of some give and take. There's a little bit of benefit to them, but they have still raised some concerns because of the same site requirement. And again, just circling back, the reason for the additional limitations is that for private practices is that the board is tasked with public protection. So we always have to keep that in mind first. And the board has determined that private practices and professional corporations are needed of some additional oversight to ensure that associates are supervised properly and not practicing independently. So we have to kind of weigh that concern with the need for access. Let's see. At the February Policy and Advocacy Committee, we really centered the discussion on potentially modifying subsection 2 of that language that you see in your packet that's proposed, the providing psychotherapeutic services to clients at the same site. So the committee asked me to come up with several different scenarios of what that language could look like, and then have a discussion with Kaiser about those scenarios and then report back to the board. So that's what I've done. The scenarios are shown in attachment C of your packet. And there's several of them, so we can refer to that in our discussion if you'd like. And really, when writing these scenarios, I really broke it down into 3 questions because there's kind of a lot going on there in that one sentence. There's a few things that the board needs to consider when reviewing the attachment C scenarios. The requirement right now is that the supervisor provides psychotherapeutic services to clients at the site. So one question is raised is, should psychotherapeutic services be more specifically defined to include activities such as, should it be just direct, they have to provide counseling there? Can it be counseling and supervision? Can it be counseling, supervision, and non-clinical services? Does it have to be, can it be a mix of all 3, or does it have to be, is that not, should it just be counseling clients? So that's kind of one question that's raised. Another question that's raised is, should the performance of services at the same site be deleted? It's possible that during the COVID state of emergency that's kind of an antiquated requirement. I mean, a lot of associates are practicing via telehealth from home, obviously because they can't be on the work site. And we are strengthening our supervision regulations to make sure that the supervisors and the supervisees are more aware of their responsibilities. So it may be acceptable to not require performance of services at the same site, but the implications should still be considered because the intent is not to make sure that associates are not doing independent practice. And then finally, the third question that comes up with these scenarios are, should the supervisor be required to perform services for the associate's employer at the same site as the associate, or is something else acceptable? Could we say the same organization, the same health provider, same medical group, something like that? And so I'm going to open it up for a discussion. I think that in terms of what staff is looking at in attachment C, we kind of felt like item 2E might be something that would meet everybody's needs and be a nice compromise, but definitely I will open it up for discussion and we can see where that discussion goes.
Thank you, Roseanne. I would like to see if any board members would like to chime in and have any questions or clarifications. I'm browsing around to see if there is any of you would like to speak.
Roseanne, I just want to thank you for, really, the thorough job, to summarize the discussion from the, from the P&A meeting last time. And, I'm really happy with, the languages and different scenarios, so we can present some options for the board member to vote on. So I just want to acknowledge your work.
Thank you.
Very true. Thank you, Christina. Anyone else from the board before we open to the public? Kelly.
So, Roseanne, and also I want to second Christina's statement. This was a very extensive statutory analysis. It was really quite wonderful. And you have to forgive me here. I'm going to try and speak really simply because it was a little hard to understand. If you have an ASW working in a nonprofit, and then you have a supervisor who's working in a private non-exempt setting, and that supervisor is coming in to that nonprofit doing, like, providing psychotherapeutic services, maybe part-time, can that supervisor still function as a supervisor for the ASW who's in the nonprofit doing full-time stuff?
They can for the nonprofit. If the person is working, if the supervisor is working in the private practice, it makes it a lot easier. The problem is maybe when the supervisor is not working in the private practice, maybe they're working for the nonprofit and they're going over to the private practice to supervise. The private practice or the professional corporation is what has those additional sort of public protection requirements that supervisors have to, then they have to work. Right now, the law says they have to be employed full time there. They have to see clients at the same site. They can't be contractors, things like that. So
gotcha.
It's a lot easier to
the
go
other way around.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Kelly. Anyone else? John Suffolk.
Roseanne, thank you again. This is a deep and confusing issue, and you have provided so much clarity for us. We keep using Kaiser as the example. In the discussions that the policy committee had, did we look at how and why this would apply to other situations?
Right, it does. We've kind of used Kaiser as an example. They're the ones that this comes up for most often. DaVita, which is a dialysis clinic, is another one that occasionally comes up. But in general, I think that the general issue is that this could potentially come up for anybody who's sort of wanting to use supervisors in two different types of practices. Because we know that there's a shortage of supervisors out there, so they kind of want to mix sometimes. And so the question is, how can we do that safely keeping in public protection in mind?
Because one of my challenges in this whole conversation is a lot of this movement is being directed in a way to support a for-profit corporation, such as Kaiser and/or dialysis centers, to balance out what they're doing for their nonprofit. And so it really concerns me that we're working so hard for a for-profit situation when ultimately our hard work should always be directed towards our population and the public.
Roseanne?
Yeah, that's a fair point. That is definitely something the board has to weigh.
Right. I would like to add to that. Thank you, John, for pointing that out. I think we've done an amazing work to try to accommodate the diversity of clinical or non-clinical settings in making sure, our goal should be making sure that the remote locations and people that are being served in these locations are actually able to be served, right? That should be our goal. I've seen us really working a lot with Kaiser because they brought legit concerns, but at the same time, some of us, we did the P&A, expressed exactly the same concern in regards to, we're trying to create a model here where everybody can fit in, and Kaiser has such a peculiar particular diversified way how to deliver these services that really, no matter how you put it, is not going to fit. The blanket is always short. So I appreciate the work that the PNA and also Roseanne has done in trying to accommodate, which there are legit concerns, right? Because there are hundreds of people working under Kaiser that also would like to be licensed, and they are getting their expertise through them. So we definitely don't want to penalize them. But at the same time, I concur to what you're saying, John. I mean, the goal has to be public protections and also making sure that our remote regions are properly served in a way that where the majority have been served, not just the peculiar differences within the same system. So I appreciate the work Roseanne has done, because this is really where we came to. And I'm sure as for any legislations, as we legislate, we'll find out also about shortcoming or not, about the same, which we will always address, because our goal is to make sure that we serve the populations that we need to serve. But yeah, I will put an eye in considerations about the final goal of this is serving the public and not just the private entity that they obviously have an interest on that. So with that, I'll move it to other board members, and then I would like to go to the public. Wendy. And then Diana, right? Yes.
Thank you, Chair Disposti. As part of our discussion at the Policy and Advocacy Committee, I want to make sure we note, particularly with the conversation that was had earlier today about the mental health crisis resulting from the pandemic, and an obligation that we as a board have to make sure that there's a sufficient number of therapists out there to meet that need. And so I think as a board, our priority here is not necessarily to assist a for-profit corporation. It's to make sure that the licensees under that corporation are able to meet the requirements for their license so that they can serve the public effectively, and so that we make sure that in all corners of the state that there are therapists available to meet this mental health crisis. So I think that's a different focus for me than helping a for-profit corporation. It's helping the individual members or the employees of that corporation to make sure that they can assist the public.
Thank you, Wendy and Diana.
Yeah, thank you. I think I just kind of wanted to say the same thing as Wendy, that I get the need to protect the public and not necessarily just support the for-profits. But as an educator, I just know that there's a lot of students and associates, both PC and MFT. I don't work with the social workers, but I'm assuming them also, that really would benefit from the training and the different programs that something as huge as Kaiser has to offer them. And I would hate for them to go forward having to miss out on that opportunity also, because we deny them the opportunity for that. So that's it.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you so much. Any other board member? Okay. Then, moderator, if it's okay, can we open to the public, please?
This is the moderator. I have opened the Q&A panel. If you'd like to make a public comment, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen. Type, "I would like to make a comment" into the text field and submit that to all panelists. Our first request for comment comes from Denise. Denise, your line is open and you will have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Denise Tugade, Government Relations Advocate for SEIU United Healthcare Workers. We represent 100,000 healthcare workers across the state, including LCSWs within the Kaiser system. And I want to echo the thanks to Roseanne Helms for just so much work gone into this process. Steve and the PNA chair, board member Wong as well, for all your responsiveness to our concerns. We raised these issues around making sure that our members are able to get their supervision hours that they've been working so hard on to actually count towards their license. And want to emphasize that we concur that option 2E, that language, really balances making sure that there's oversight and documentation of supervision, which is something that we have concerns about as well, making sure that that our ASWs are getting proper training. But also reflects the current situation and makes sure that we're not creating this bottleneck to access. Like so many board members have said already, there are these concerns about this coming wave of mental health issues that are already cresting. And so, we want to echo that support and appreciate the comments raised so far. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Denise.
Not seeing any other requests for comment. Would you like me to close? Oh, one more just popped. A couple more popping in. Let's see. Next comment is from Rebecca Gonzalez. Rebecca, your line is open and you will have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Rebecca Gonzalez, National Association of Social Workers, California Chapter. I'm just commenting to support our social workers who work with Kaiser and agree with the previous speaker. Thank you.
And our next comment comes from Josie Baker. Josie, your line is open and you will have 2 minutes.
Good morning to the board, and thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Josie Baker. I'm a medical social worker here at Kaiser. I'm sure you're all tired of hearing from me. And Roseanne, thank you again so much. You've done such an extensive and thorough deep dive into all of this information in terms of, and your presentation to the board was really helpful. So I guess what I would like to say is just this pandemic has really triggered an unprecedented and exponential rise in anxiety and depression in all of our patients that I see. It's just overwhelming. And really access to clinical supervision is imperative to the continued professional growth of social workers in Kaiser, but also California, in order to meet the tremendous psychosocial needs of the citizens of California. So these emotional needs with this pandemic, we need really well-honed clinical skills as MSWs. The changes to the regulations afford parity to ASWs employed by one of California's largest employers of medical social work. And yes, that would be Kaiser. This revision of regulations seems to strike a really important balance between, when I'm saying that, I'm speaking of 2E, a really important balance between affording parity and access
15 seconds.
ASWs that work in both exempt and non-exempt settings while simultaneously providing consumer protections that are very important to us as well. We are overseen by a whole department called compliance as well as med legal. We have to be very careful, and as I said to Roseanne, we really they are really tightening, even just to have interns here from UC Berkeley. Thank you. I appreciate my time.
Thank you, Josie. We are actually very happy to have you here. Thanks for dedicating a lot of the time to come and advocate for this. So thank you. We're not tired of hearing from you.
Our next comment comes from Latrina Robinson.
Thank you, Moderator.
Latrina, your line is open and you will have 2 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Latrina Robinson, and I am a social worker at Kaiser Permanente as well. I work in the home-based department of Kaiser. And I would like to thank all of you board members for consideration of changes to this policy. I definitely hear the concerns of board member Kelly and board member Max as well in terms of making changes to benefit the corporation. From my perspective, we're actually making changes to benefit the employees that are serving children with high ACE scores, that are also benefiting the employees that are supporting those with chronic medical conditions, that are supporting those that seniors transitioning to permanent long-term skilled nursing facility or assisted living facility housing, that are supporting many members of our community that are HIV positive, that are supporting moms that are experiencing maternal child health crisis or experiencing domestic violence and interpartner violence. This change would allow those vulnerable social workers working in those very vulnerable populations to have equity with the social workers in the hospital and moving towards license. So I really thank you for consideration of these changes to benefit all of the social workers, again, working with our vulnerable populations. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I don't, let's see if we...
I do have one hand. So Josie Baker, if you could please lower your hand. And we do have one hand raised in the audience by Kathy Atkins. Kathy, I'm going to call on you and unmute your microphone so you can speak. Just know in the future we need to utilize the Q&A panel. So Kathy, your line is unmuted. You will have 2 minutes.
Hi, this is Kathy Atkins from Lmft. I'm actually not trying to speak for or against one choice over the other. I really do defer and trust in Roseanne's assessment and analysis, especially when it comes to consumer protection. I guess I am expressing a little bit of a concern that in fixing the problem that's been raised with Kaiser, which I recognize and understand, I just want to make sure another problem isn't created elsewhere. For example, I know that some of the private drug and alcohol facilities or things of that nature. Again, I'm not saying E is better than 2 is better than 1 or which should happen. I just want to make sure that there is an assessment and review and an analysis of are we causing a consumer protection problem in other kinds of businesses or setups by fixing this problem, which I agree is a problem. So I'm kind of looking to the BBS and Roseanne, since they are charged with consumer protection, that all these different sort of setups have been reviewed. Again, I don't have a solution, to be frank, but I just wanted to sort of just raise that up, that we are looking. I'm hopeful, and I'm presuming that sort of all the different setups have been looked at. So if a change is made, it ensures consumer protection sort of across the board. That's it. Thank you. And thank you all for working on this. And Roseanne, again, your great review. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Moderator,
That looks like it. I see no other hands and no other requests in the Q&A.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to move back to our board members and see if there are at this point any motions or more of discussion in regards. If anyone would like to move a motion in regards to one of the suggestions that Roseanne has made. John Savet?
Can I actually follow up with Kathy's curiosity? Was there any look at how this might have ripple out and have repercussions? She does bring up like the private treatment center situation, which could definitely fall into the process of what we're talking about. I just wonder from the committee or Roseanne if those things that Kathy brought up were like brought under consideration.
Go ahead, Roseanne.
I can speak to that. Kathy does definitely raise a point. Anytime we make a change like this, and it is a pretty big change, there are the possibility for other unintended consequences to crop up. We did look at the various types of settings that are out there and what we're allowing. I think that if you're looking in terms of 2E, that it's definitely the most. I mean, somebody would still either be required to either be employed by or contracted by the associate's employer or be an owner and provide psychotherapeutic services to clients there, or they would have to basically have an agreement with the employer that that they have access to the records and that the clients authorize the release of records. That's kind of modeled after what the state of Arizona does. like that, because that's kind of where we're going in our telehealth regulations, where we're really trying to focus on having that written contract to be able to access the records, to make sure that the supervisor has the same access and is able to do their job properly. But it does loosen the requirement a little bit by not having the supervisor be required to work there. It does open a door for potential abuse of that. However, we need to weigh that with access to supervisor, and also with the telehealth committee, we're going to be talking, because obviously with the COVID pandemic, everybody's kind of working off-site and anyways, and we're going to be talking about that issue in the telehealth committee with telesupervision and things like that. So all of these issues have been raised recently, and they're kind of interconnected. So yeah, it's definitely something that the board should discuss. That's what I'm trying to say.
Christina?
I think Wendy comes before me. So Wendy and then myself, and I think Kelly wants to make a point too, right?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I saw them after, but okay. Go ahead, Wendy. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. I was going to make a motion. So if we're not there yet, I'm happy to let other board members weigh in before I do that. So.
Thank you, Wendy. You can always make a motion, and then if there is a second or not, so that's entirely up to you. But if you want to wait, it's okay. And then Kelly.
I was going to make a motion as well, but I will defer to other board members. I think Ms. Herwick has her hand up as well on the hand up list.
That's later. And then we have, hold on.
Myself.
Yes, Christina.
It will be myself. Diana, shook her head. So I actually would like to, I'm going to make a crazy recommendation. So, I really like the 2A because that is also an important point, that to address that various services, that we discussed in the P&A meeting. And so my thinking is that, what about we use 2A, in replacement of 2E, and then add the 1 and 2, as the another specifier, my clinical, my DSM-5 thought. So, so that will embrace, the kind of the discussion about like all these different activities, and not just limited to the psychotherapy. Roseanne, does it make sense?
I think so. So you want to use 2A and then say, it basically provides clinical counseling supervision and for the associated employer and has the agreement?
So it will kind of read like this. So 2A provides direct clinical counseling supervision of pre-licensees and or non-clinical practice activities as defined in section 4980 ... for the associate's employer, or meet both of the following, 1 and 2. Does it make sense? So we basically replace the first sentence, the first line of 2E by 2A, and then retain the or meet both of the followings.
Okay.
So that's a little more comprehensive to capture, what we talked about, in the P&A meeting, and the concern about like the different nature of services.
Right. I guess the question that raises for me, as I had put in the and or, that there's another question with 2A, is that what are the services? Can it just be supervision, or does it have to be clinical counseling also? Can it be like non-clinical services only, or does it need to be all three?
Good question. But that's exactly what we were talking about last time, right? Or we can make it simple, just leave it as the psychotherapy, and we can defer that change later, because we can always come back and
we can always come back. I can see the benefit to leaving psychotherapeutic services is that it's more broad, so more would qualify. But it is an interesting question. Is psychotherapeutic services? You could argue that supervision of pre-licensees constitutes psychotherapeutic services. So is that okay? Maybe it is. Maybe it's if they have the agreement and they're supervising them, we're going to be having the supervisor regs come on, and it's very specific on everybody what they need to do in order to supervise a supervisor accurately. We have all the responsibilities in law now. It's a lot more fleshed out than it was before, and it's going to be even more so with the new supervision agreements when those are adopted and come online.
Right.
So it would be putting more of the onus on the supervisor, and it would allow more it allows more outside supervisors to come in, and it allows those private practices. If you have a small private practice or an alcohol and drug counselor, they could, if they're willing to give an outside supervisor an agreement to access the client records, and the client's willing to consent to that, they could have an outside supervisor then. Right. Maybe that's okay. Maybe that increases access, but it does allow that possibility for supervisors that are not employed at those places to come in where previously they're not allowed. But maybe that's something if we're looking at a supervisor shortage and supervisors know that they have responsibilities and their licenses on the line, maybe that's an okay thing to do. That's kind of what the board has to weigh.
Right. Got it. John has a question.
Actually, Kelly, did you have one? I think you've had your hand up for a little bit.
No, what I was going to say is I was going to make a motion to accept Amendment 1 because it seems like there's really no opposition to that, and we're focusing the discussion on Amendment 2. That way we can get that out of the way and we can really focus on Amendment 2.
This is
so
Sabina.
I would make a motion to accept Amendment 1.
This is Sabina. That's a great approach. We can definitely break this up into two different amendments and motions.
So I would move to accept Amendment 1 as written by Ms. Helms.
And this is Sabina also. Just to follow up on that motion, we want to make it clear that we would like to authorize the staff and the EO to move forward with a legislative proposal to make that change.
Yes.
We will need a second for the motion to stand.
And also to make the amendment and any non-substantive changes to Amendment 1.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Roseanne. So is any second for Amendment 1?
I'll second that.
Yeah, I'll second.
Sorry, I had a lot of seconds at the same time. Who is seconding?
One or Wendy.
Okay, Wendy seconding. Okay. Any discussion about Amendment 1? So I believe.
For a vote?
Can we take some public comment first on this before we do a vote?
Yes, thank you, Sabina. Thanks again. Moderator?
This is the moderator. We have opened the Q&A panel. If you'd like to make a public comment, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen. Type, I would like to make a comment into the text field and submit that to all panelists. And seeing no requests for comment, would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, thank you, Moderator. Thank you.
It is closed.
Okay, here's the vote. I'm going to start with Yvette. Yvette Willis?
Yes.
Max Disposti?
No.
Susan Friedman? Susan Friedman?
Yes.
Thank you. Diana Hurwitz?
Yes.
Chris Jones?
Yes.
Kelly Ranasinghe?
Yes.
John Sovek?
No.
Wendy Strack?
Yes.
Christina Wong?
Yes.
And We have 7 yeses, motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Christina. Roseanne, again.
Yes. So under that motion, we would strike that language about if there's the additional other government oversight that they would not be considered private practice. We've taken care of that one. Now we're back to potential amendment number 2, which is the question about in private practices providing psychotherapeutic services to clients at the same site as the associate. So that's kind of where we're at. The board can do a few. I mean, this kind of runs into like the telehealth committee as well, because we're going to be discussing some potential changes about supervision via telehealth, which also brings up other access issues at the same site. So I think the discussion really comes down to how does the board feel about the same site component? Do we feel is the feeling that that's becoming obsolete, or is it that is the feeling that that's still needed? That's where we really have to go from there, I think.
Okay, Roseanne, I'm opening back to the board then.
John, let me go first, and then I'll come after you. Not come after you, but I'll speak after you.
I've got a big dog. She'll keep me safe.
Go ahead, John.
Question because of something Roseanne mentioned earlier. There's a common phrase in supervisors that we make considerations because it's our license on the line. With these ideas of being non-employed and setting up this kind of extended out of the actual experiential place, when it's me, my liability is insurance is there. But when I worked with a school, that also was under their liability. Will we be setting up exposure for our stakeholders that only their insurance will be creating coverage in these moments of not necessarily having to be part of that entity?
Roseanne?
Well, it's allowed for, we allow outside supervision for nonprofits and other outside settings. So I would assume that it would work the same way. I mean, if you can have outside supervision at those settings, I don't know that the insurance would recognize it's different for private practice, but I don't know.
John, do you need?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, so John, if you don't need to follow up with Roseanne's answer, okay, then I am going to, I think I will make it simple, because I think, Roseanne has a really, really good point, keep reminding us that, this might be an evolving, changing. And so let's really just go on to, I would really, think about maybe adopting 2E, that proposal and that proposed language. And, and since the work is done, and after, with all the other committee, that to discuss about the supervisor role and all the other aspect that might affect that particular terms, particular language, I think we can always come back and modify it. I just kind of I want to be more inclusive, but at the same time, I don't really want to open up more, possible, unintended consequences. So yeah, Roseanne, what do you think?
I agree with Christina. I think that there is, anytime we make a big change, it is a big change and there is risks, but we're looking at this anyway. I mean, we're looking at all of these online therapy companies coming in, and I think that we're going to find more, we've heard from an LCSW corporation that's trying to allow for telehealth supervision for certain underrepresented groups to be able to get their associates, get their license and gain hours via telehealth. So we're going to be this issue is here. I mean, the associate working at the same physical site as their supervisor as things move online. I don't know how that seems to be happening already, and,
yes.
and it's only going to be more because of COVID. So that's my take on it. I think I agree with what Christina's saying.
Okay. So Chris.
So Christine, I'm sorry, just for the clarification, is that a motion that you're making in the meantime?
I can make that motion, sure. Let me make the motion of 2E, but I think Chris wants to, have some.
No, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
I just want to, as a practitioner that has a private practice and utilizes associates, that I agree that, because of my license, I can't supervise the associates that we have, that I have employed. So I think that it's important to have a supervisor that you can use, and I agree that if they're not directly employed through me, that giving them access to client records and having them on site to be able to understand the programming is imperative to make sure that they're doing the right job. I mean, I have an MFT on the payroll that does the supervision, but that becomes limiting over time. And making sure that we have the ability to provide proper supervision to the associates and giving them the opportunity to have a diverse experience. I think broadening that is going to benefit them, in many different ways. So I'm in support of that.
Thank you, Chris. And okay, I don't see. Oh yeah, Wendy, sorry.
I just wanted to second Christina's motion for 2E.
Okay. Well,
thank you.
So should I clarify? Oh, Roseanne, why don't you say the motion?
Yes, why don't I do that? Okay, so the motion is going to be for amendment number 2 regarding business and professions codes. I'll just say them all: 4980.43.4B2, 4996.23.3B2, and 4999.46.4B2. It's going to be adopt the proposal in attachment C, item 2E, to make that amendment in 2E, and to direct staff to pursue the amendment in AB 690 and make any non-substantive changes.
That's my motion.
I got most of that. So adopt proposal in attachment C2E.
Yes.
And the language just before you said direct staff to make any agreed changes, what were those words?
It was to adopt the language in 2E and to pursue a amendment to AB 690 and to also make any non-substantive changes.
Okay, so
Great, got that. Thank you.
Thank you both. Before we go to vote, I would like to open to the public if there are any other comments from the public. Moderator, thank you.
This is the moderator. I've again opened the Q&A panel. If you'd like to make a public comment, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen. Type "I would like to make a comment" into the text field and submit that to all panelists. Our first comment comes from Josie Baker. Josie, your line is open and you will have 2 minutes.
It's me again. Thank you so much, board. I guess I just want to kind of provide a real world example, and I do believe I raised this last time, but I'll just kind of add a little bit of further information. I'm kind of the poster child for this whole issue. I had a terrible time getting my LCSW clinical supervision. It took me over 6 years to attain it, and it was not for lack of effort. But what I ended up being able to do, well, first of all, I went outside of Kaiser for all of my clinical supervision, and I was able to locate, I mean, I was very careful, and what I noticed when I was doing my search for a potential clinical supervisor was that I made sure that they were they had medical social work experience. You know, I'm not going to hit up somebody who's worked in the schools or a chemical dependency because it's it's a very specialized type of social work. And so there was that, but I noticed that many of the people, you know, it's very much like looking at a client, you know, in terms of like, can I serve this patient? Do I have the clinical skills and expertise to deal with trauma or to, you know, deal with molest or, you know, whatever the issue that the consumer is presenting with. And the thing about my employer, which is Kaiser, is that we are comprehensive. You know, we have all of our healthcare and providers are in one. And so anytime we take on what's called an outside provider, somebody that is contracted from kind of what I would call the public sector, we have like a very, very
15 seconds.
Sorry, you know, we have requirements in terms of compliance and HIPAA rules and things, and they sign off. Kaiser has the right to breach that contract at any time. So I guess in terms of consumer safety, that would be my comment too. Thank you.
Thank you. Moderator, do we have any? I don't see any other comments.
No, nope, I don't see any either. Would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, please. Thank you so much.
It is closed.
So we have a motion on the table that was moved by Christina, a second by, ouch, help me.
Wendy.
Wendy, thank you. And so I believe we can, if there are no other further discussion, we can call Christina Kitamura for the vote. Christina, go ahead.
Yes. Yvette Willis?
This is for 2E, right?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Yes.
Max Disposti?
Yes. Yes.
Susan Friedman?
Yes.
Diana Herwick?
Yes.
Chris Jones?
Yes.
Kelly Ranasinghe?
Yes.
John Sovek?
Yes.
Wendy Strack?
Yes.
Christina Wong?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Christina. Roseanne?
Yes. Do we want to move on to 16C?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, so item 16C is a discussion of AB 723. The author for AB 723 is Assembly Member Lowe, and the sponsor is the California Association of Marriage and Family Therapists. And the Policy and Advocacy Committee heard this bill. Campton wanted to get some early feedback on this bill, so we heard the bill at the February 5th Policy and Advocacy Committee meeting. It had not been introduced at that time. The bill has now since been introduced. There's a couple of minor changes to the listing of the scope, but the bill, or the scope activities with the bill, is very much similar to the, very similar to the bill that the Policy and Advocacy Committee recommended a support on. But I'm going to go through the bill and kind of explain some of the minor differences, and then the board can discuss from there. So this bill is a proposal to modernize and clarify the scope of practice for LMFTs. We have a current scope of practice in LMFT law. It's been there for a very long time. It's in Business and Professions Code section 4980.02. I've included it in the memo here. The last time it was amended was in 2010. Only minor technical changes were made at that time. The next most recent amendment was in 2004. And at the time, they included the use, application, and integration of the coursework and training required in the degree into the scope of practice. So Ben actually alluded to that earlier when we were talking about prognosis and how it being in the required education makes it part of the scope of practice. So that's when that piece was done. So this bill I've included the exact changes in attachment A. It's the introduced version of the bill. You can see exactly what's being struck out in 498002 and what's being added is in italics and strikeout. So Camps used the education and experience requirements for LMFTs to derive this information. They were nice enough to provide a matrix about where all of the various listings came from in the law, so that's shown in attachment B. And they in their fact sheet, they indicate that this has been kind of a long process. They'll speak to that, but they formed a special committee and they spoke to or did research on scopes for MFTs in other states. And so this is something that they've been working on for a long time. Like I said earlier, the Policy and Advocacy Committee recommended a support position right before the bill was introduced. We had the language. The bill is formally drafted by Ledge Council, and there are some minor wording changes in the bill 4980.02B1 through 10, where there's that list there. They made some minor wording changes that, from the previous version. So just take a look at those and make sure that that you're okay with all of those, is what I would recommend. But other than that, I'll open it up to discussion.
So just, to educate, oh yeah, sorry. I jumped.
Go ahead.
I'm so sorry, Max. Now my coffee started to kick in. So, so just to, to clarify too, so this is already a bill, that is, going, through the legislative process. So our job is really just to support or not support.
Sorry, yes, I should have clarified. Usually we don't do this till May. This one just kind of happened to come up early. This is not a board proposal. This is a bill proposal that we're considering taking an early position on. So that's why usually we don't bring very many bill proposals in March because there's not a lot of bill proposals in print in their full form. Right. So you may see this again in May if it changes. But it is going to start. It is going to start moving through hearing, and Camps had asked for some feedback. So we thought, since the bill, it was it's not a spot bill. We thought it would be nice. It doesn't hurt to have an early position.
Thank you, Roseanne. Thanks for the clarification. Any other questions or comments from the board? I would like to move a motion in support of the bill, and then I would like to go public to see if there are any public comments. Thank you, moderator. And then John, before we do that, John.
I would like to second.
Oh, John. Okay. Thank you. Okay, public comments. Thank you, moderator.
This is the moderator. We have opened the Q&A panel. If you'd like to make a public comment, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen, type "I would like to make a comment" into the text field, and submit that to all panelists. Our first comment comes from Jennifer Alley. Jennifer, your line is open and you will have 2 minutes.
Good morning. This is Jennifer Alley with the California Association of Marriage and Family Therapists, CAMPT, and we do respectfully request the BBS support of our effort to modernize the scope of practice for marriage and family therapists in a way that reflects the education and therapeutic concepts and treatment regularly provided and utilized by MFTs. And I'm here if you have any questions, and thank you again for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you so much. Ben.
Next comment comes from Ben Caldwell. Ben, your line is open. You will have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Ben Caldwell, MFT. I just want to second support for this bill and really want to praise my colleagues at CAMPT. They did a great job with this bill, not just in terms of the final product that's in front of you now, but really in terms of the process of development. Working with stakeholders, working internally, being really thoughtful, taking in feedback, and landing, I think, in a really good place in terms of the final legislative language. So respectfully request a vote of support.
Thank you. And our next comment comes from Kathy Atkins. Kathy, your line is open and you will have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo the statements said so far, but specifically thank Roseanne and Steve for their contributions and feedback on the bill, the P&A committee's support, and the other stakeholders, NSAW, California, LPCCs, Ben Caldwell. I really wanted to underscore that the feedback we got from the BBS and other stakeholders really helped this bill come to life, and I think it's a good product. So I just wanted to thank everybody who was involved, and just note that to the board, especially that Roseanne and Steve, how helpful they were, so that the board knows what an asset you have. And that was it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our next comment comes from Rebecca Gonzalez. Rebecca, your line is open and you will have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Rebecca Gonzalez, National Association of Social Workers, California Chapter. I just wanted to say that CAMFT reached out to us. We worked with them over a number of months in the fall on this proposal. We are taking a neutral position on the bill. The reason we wouldn't go and support is because we don't usually take positions on bills that, specifically relate to another profession, but they listened to our concerns and they took some modifications to their original proposal. Thank you.
And looks like that's it for our request for comments at this time.
Wonderful, moderator. Thank you. Yes, we can move back to the board. We have a motion and a second in place. I moved the motion, a second by John. If there are any other questions from the board, then we can, Christina.
Okay. Not a question per se, but I want to just take this opportunity to really thank the professional associations, to work so closely together. And I just want to, also let the board know that, we actually we're very lucky, to have the very collaborative group of the stakeholders. And so, they are very valuable to us, and, and they do work together. So, so I think it's very also important for us to take serious consideration of their input. So that's just all I want to do, is just to thank them.
Thank you, Christina. If it was a motion, I would have seconded that, but thank you. Thanks for that remark. I think it's really important to not to give that for granted as well. So, okay, back to our motion. Christina Kitamura, if you would like to call the vote. Thank you.
Yvette Willis?
Yes.
Max Disposti?
Yes.
Susan Friedman?
Yes.
Diana Herwick?
Yes.
Christopher Jones?
Yes.
Kelly Ranasinghe?
Yes.
John Sovek?
Yes.
Wendy Strack?
Yes.
Christina Wong?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Wonderful. Thank you, Christina. Roseanne, if you don't mind, before we move to the next item, I think we need a 5 minutes break. It's been an hour, 30 minutes on. So we will resume at 11:30 a.m. in 5 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. It's 11:33, Board of Behavioral Sciences. My name is Max Disposti. I'm the board chair, pronounced he, him, and we are proceeding with Roseanne in item. Roseanne, I know you can help me with this.
Item 17, the telehealth committee update.
Wonderful. Telehealth committee updates. Yes.
Yes, so our telehealth committee held its first meeting a few weeks back, and it was on January 22nd, 2021. And the purpose of the committee is to determine if any of the board's laws related to the practice of telehealth need to be updated or clarified. I know that a lot of issues have been raised with COVID. So we talked at the meeting about the existing statutes. We took a look at our existing statutes and regulations related to telehealth. We discussed potential future topics. There's a lot of different areas of telehealth. There's a lot of different different things to discuss. So we ran down some of those topics, asked for suggestions for additional topics that the committee should tackle. And we also took a look at the laws just for a reference of other states pertaining to practice across state lines. So that was the first meeting. The second meeting of the telehealth is coming up here in a couple of weeks, March 26th. We're going to be focusing on our telehealth laws pertaining to pre-licensees at that meeting. We're going to do some talking about trainees gaining practicum via telehealth, talk about trainees doing telehealth services via telehealth in general. We'll also talk about the ability of associates and trainees to gain supervision via telehealth. So that is what's on the agenda for March 26th.
Thank you, Roseanne. Sorry, I thought I was not muted. And I know we don't have anything to vote on this. It's just an update about the telehealth committee. So
right.
as we move forward with the discussion of our telehealth committee, I'm sure we will have more meat to go around and discuss into. So thank you. We're moving now to agenda number 18.
Chair Disposti, we do have a couple hand raises by board members.
Oh, great. Okay. I really didn't see any one of them.
I see Member Rana Singhi and Member Jones with their hands up.
No,
I thought
sorry,
it was an
I put my hand down.
Chris.
Sorry, I left it up. I need to learn how to take it down.
I thought it was from the previous, yeah, but I think,
yeah. Sorry about that. There we go. All right.
It's all good, but thank you, moderator. I appreciate that. So any conversation, any more? Okay, in regards to telehealth, at this point, since we know how important this is, even though we are at the very beginning of the conversation, I just want to make sure that I pay honor to the public and making sure that there are no comments from the public. So moderator, if you would like to go there, thank you.
This is the moderator. We have opened the Q&A panel. Again, if you'd like to make a comment, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen. Type "I would like to make a comment" into the text field and submit that to all panelists. We have a request from Sierra Smith. Sierra, your line is open and you will have 2 minutes.
Hi, forgive my ignorance. I wanted to ask if the telehealth committee is open to the public, and if so, what the time was, because that's very important to those of us who run community counseling clinics.
Wonderful. Thank you for that question, Sierra. Yes, all our committees are open to the public, and we post the times and place, which is virtual at the moment, on our BBS site. But when is the next appointment again, Then?
The time, I believe, is to be determined at this time. We have 2 committees going on that day. We have our brand new licensing committee we're starting up, as well as telehealth. So I'm guessing that one will be in the morning, early morning, and one will either be in the late morning or early afternoon. So within the agenda needs to be posted coming up here pretty soon, 10 days before. So in about a week and a half, take a look on our website at the agenda. It'll be posted then, and it'll say the time.
Wonderful. Thank
Seeing
you.
no more requests for comment, I will close the panel.
Thank you, moderator. Okay, then if there are no other conversation comments in regards to item 17 for telehealth, we are moving to item 18. Roseanne?
I believe that one's actually Christy.
Yeah.
All right. Wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you. So this item contains some minor changes to the text of a previously board-approved regulation proposal pertaining to the supervision of experience required for licensure for Lmft, LCSW, and LPCC professions. These regulations have been through all the different processes. We're in the very last step, where they were submitted to the Office of Administrative Law for final review. So what happens there is they have an attorney who looks at the proposal and with a fine-tooth comb. And they did find a number of things that they've asked us to change. It ranges anything from, you need a comma here, or you need to capitalize or bold, up to some things that are some minor changes that are substantive, nothing earth-shattering. So I'll go through some of that, but it does require board approval because some of the changes are substantive. And we are anticipating a July 1st, 2021 effective date with certain components to be phased in. So this was, the background on this is this is a proposal that we've been working on for years. And it will make some significant changes to the supervision process, including strengthening supervision requirements and some of the supervisor's responsibilities, as well as making the requirements consistent across the different professions. So this here just kind of goes over in the background the different changes that are in the language. So I'm just going to jump straight to the changes that have been requested by the Office of Administrative Law. And again, there's some technical, non-substantive, and just clarifying changes. I think they made some good improvements. And then onto the more substantive items. The supervisor self-assessment report, which is where this is where supervisors, right now, supervisors don't register with the board. We don't know who's out there supervising until somebody submits their hours of experience and that supervisor is signed, we see it there. So what this is going to do is require supervisors to complete a self-assessment report that they will submit to the board showing that they are qualified. That provides the reason we did this is to provide some protections to the applicants or the supervisees who are gaining experience, because sometimes their hours get denied because their supervisor wasn't fully qualified. Also, this way, we know who's out there supervising. We'll be able to communicate with those licensees sort of in a targeted way. So this supervisor self-assessment report, one thing is that we wanted to clarify that the supervisor's telephone number and email address that they would be putting on this document or doing online is that these shall be confidential. The effective date, there's a phase-in for existing supervisors. How it would work for brand new supervisors is they would need to submit this within 60 days of commencing supervision. But of course, we have a bunch of people out there already supervising. So what the regulations, we initially had a January 1st, 2022 date for all of those existing supervisors to notify us, but because these have gotten delayed, we would like to change that to July 1st of 2022. So that gives them a full year to comply. We need to be able to get the word out. It's going to not be as easy because, again, we don't have a list of everybody who's supervising. So we wanted to give plenty of time on that. There was one thing we didn't address is when a supervisor is no longer qualified and they no longer wish to supervise. So we added, are proposing to add that they notify us within 60 days of no longer being qualified to supervise, or they notify us if they just want to be removed from the list. And we are hoping that we can get this online through the Breeze system. The next change has to do with when supervisees are placed by a temporary agency into a mental health setting. So we are now proposing to include language that clarifies that the supervisee may be an employee of the temp agency or of the agency that contracts with the temp agency. We know that that is how it's happening out there, but the language didn't really say that. So the attorney asked that we kind of make that explicit so that it's clear what we're talking about in this section. And also had us make a small change regarding the wording of requiring the employer to provide a W-2. Basically, we don't directly regulate employers, so we can't say the employer must do this. It's really what happens is if the employer doesn't do it, it falls back on the associate. So their hours wouldn't count. So they asked us to remove that language that requires the employer to do it because we don't regulate the employer. So basically, we're just referring back to the statute that talks about the W-2 requirement rather than that the language that we had in there previously. The next topic is on substitute supervisors. So when you have someone who's filling in for the regular supervisor when they're temporarily on a leave of absence or something like that. So this, the attorney said, would a substitute supervisor be required to sign a written oversight agreement? In the case, there's in the regulations, actually this is in statute as well, when a supervisor is not employed by the supervisee's employer, there's this written oversight agreement that they have to sign. And that oversight agreement helps ensure that the supervisor has access to client records, and it provides some other protections. So yes, we thought it made sense that that substitute supervisor should have that written oversight agreement because it is important that they have that access. The supervisor training and coursework, we are changing that effective date for the initial training for brand new supervisors to be the same as the anticipated effective date of the regulation. So that's the July 1st, 2021. The continuing professional development, which is for existing supervisors, they would do that every 2 years. And this continuing professional development is, you can have a CE class and you can have other different types of activities that will qualify. Two of the items are mentoring or consultation with other qualified supervisors or attendance at supervisor peer discussion groups. And they asked that we clarify what type of documentation would be acceptable in the for the supervisors to maintain to show that they did this. So that has been added. And then the last one has to do with the approved supervisor certification exemptions. So originally, the language would have allowed licensees who hold a supervisor certification from certain entities to qualify as a supervisor, even if they were not actively licensed for 2 of the past 5 years or had not practiced for 2 of the past 5 years, because those supervisor certification programs are so rigorous. However, the attorney pointed out that those provisions requiring the 2 years of licensure and practice are set in statute in the Business and Professions Code. So because statute overrides regulations, those actually cannot be waived. So, so really what that leaves us with is that those who hold one of those certifications, they would be exempt from supervisor training and the continuing professional development requirements. So that's what I have here for you. So the language is there in attachment A showing the proposed changes, and this will need to go out for a 15-day notice for a public comment period. Ready?
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Chris. So you don't know, Chris is our regulatory.
I'm sorry, you're cutting out a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that. I hear feedback as well. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so any questions or comments from the board? Chris.
Can I ask why LEPs weren't included in the language?
LEPs are included in this. Okay, so this pertains to the hours required for licensure for those other professions. Because LEPs are supervising, they are part of this proposal, only because they can supervise people pursuing Lmft, LPCC, and LCSW licensure. So people pursuing LEP licensure don't have all of these requirements on them because of how different, they're doing it within the school system or under different types of, it's just a completely different, as you know.
Right. Yeah, no, I meant specifically for the supervisor requirements. It didn't seem like that the LEPs were included within the language, but if you're telling me that we are included, then that's fine.
Yeah, they are included. We don't list the license types in the regulations. I think that's in statute. But yes, they are part of this.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Christy, I have a question. Max here. And I know we have been working on this for quite some time, and I'm so happy to start to see the final product, because it's definitely very, very much needed, right? To put some regulations in place, because we had none before. Sometimes the time is always what could cause problems in the long run. Timing in regards to, for instance, if there is a supervisor. Once all of this is established, a supervisor that he started, it's supervising, and it's a new relationship, so all the things are done. How long? I'm a little bit concerned about how much it will take for the supervisor to be officially the supervisor of that individual, to make sure that the hours are recognized. Because when you're dealing with thousands of applicants and they constantly go in and out of these relationships, I just want to make sure that we create a system in place where it's sustainable for us to have a overview about how many supervisors we have, and in the new relationship they're establishing as they go. So how long it's going to take for them to be official in that and that length of time? I think it's really important to take that in consideration. I know the bill cannot address that, but I just for the concern I wanted to share with everyone.
Okay.
Thanks, Christy. Any other comments from the board?
I don't have any problem with that. And actually, I do support, the suggestion coming from, the attorneys, and, just to help clarify, a lot of those little gray area, this little, something that, we forgot to put in. I just make it, I like it, make it a little bit more specific. So thanks, Christy, for the work.
That's wonderful. And I would like to see if there are any public comments. So if moderator, if we can open our chat. Thank you.
This is the moderator. We have opened the Q&A panel. If you'd like to make a comment, please click on the Q&A icon on the screen. Type "I would like to make a comment" into the text field and submit that to all panelists. And I'm not seeing any requests for comment at this time.
Okay, we can go back to the board then. Thank you so much, moderator. And just making sure there are no other raised hands. Christy, I believe this requires a motion, right?
Correct, yes. It's the motion is there in the memo.
Right, and I would like to move the motion and in the recommendation. Do I need to read that, or?
Rather me read it.
Go ahead, yes.
Okay, so the motion would be to approve the proposed text for a 15-day public comment period and delegate to the executive officer the authority to adopt the proposed regulatory changes if there are no adverse comments received during the public comment period, to follow established procedures and processes in doing so, and also to delegate to the executive officer the authority to make any technical or non-substantive changes that may be required in completing the rulemaking file.
I'll second that.
Perfect. Okay, any other discussion from the board? There were not comments from the public, so I'm assuming there are none now. Christina, let's go. Thank you.
Okay, Yvette Willis,
Yes.
Max Disposti,
Yes.
Susan Friedman,
Yes. Sorry about that. Can't turn that off.
Diana Hurwitz,
Yes.
Chris Jones,
Yes.
Kelly Ranasini,
Yes.
John Sovek,
Yes.
Wendy Strack,
Yes.
Christina Wong,
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Christina. And I believe we're ready to move to our agenda item, which is number 19, that has to do with updates on the board sponsor and board monitor legislation. So it's back to Roseanne, I believe, right?
Yes, you are correct. So legislative update, we're the board is currently proposing or pursuing two legislative proposals, AB 690, which is the one we talked about today with the amendments, and that's our practice setting definition bill, and then also an omnibus bill proposal. This is just the board co-sponsors an omnibus bill proposal every year. Senate Business Professions and Economic Development Committee sponsors that, and basically it makes minor non-technical cleanup amendments to the existing law to add clarity and consistency. Anything included in that bill has to be controversial. Since an omnibus bill did not run last year, we have a lot of items running in that. Some of them are a little more substantive, so it is possible that the committee might decide to put some of those requests in our sunset bill, which is going to be SB 801, but they haven't determined that, so it's still early on in the process. We will wait and see, and we'll have more information on that in May.
Wonderful. Thank you, Roseanne. So I believe, does it need our approval? No.
No, it does not.
Okay.
It's just an update.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments in this item 19 from the board? Okay, doesn't look like. Moderator, would you like to open to the public, please? Thank you.
This is the moderator. If you'd like to make a public comment, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen. Type "I would like to make a comment" into the text field and submit that to all panelists. And seeing none, I will close the panel.
Thank you. Thank you, moderator. Back to the board. And I think we are now ready to move to our next agenda item, which is number 20, which is an update on board rulemaking proposal. I believe Christy is presenting on this.
Yes, thank you. So just an update on where our pending regulation proposals are at. So our AB 2138 regulations have taken effect as of December 14th of 2020. This next package was the enforcement process, which would result in updates to our disciplinary process and our uniform standards. This is actually when we started before AB 2138 came on board. So we had to put this on hold. So we're currently discussing how to get that going again, because there are some other changes that we'll need to look at with that. The supervision related requirements, as we just discussed, have been submitted to OAL for final approval. We'll be doing that 15-day notice here shortly. The continuing education and additional training requirements is in the Department of Consumer Affairs initial review process. We're getting close to finishing up through that initial review process. So the next step on that would be to send that to a public notice and have a public hearing. So this proposal would update some of the content requirements. It's going to work on the CE waiver process, just make some clarifications and repeal some outdated things. Another proposal that the board had approved quite a while back has to do with exam waiting periods, professional corporations, and accrediting agencies. It's really some just technical cleanup that is in preparation for the initial review process. So that's really all I have.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you so much. I see Susan with her hands raised. Hi, Susan. Go ahead.
Hi. Yes, I'm wondering, Chrissy, if any of that education is going to include any required course on diversity. We had discussed that at a previous meeting about suggesting that.
So this does not include any new courses, anything like that. This is really just working with existing law and tightening things up and and updating it's basically updating existing text. So that would be a whole separate discussion and proposal, and would probably be more of a legislation type of thing.
Thank you. Thank you, Christy. Actually, if there are no other comments from the board, this item, which will conclude and summarize our work so far, and this will be the last item on the agenda for today. So if there are no other comments from the board, actually we are able to re-adjourn to our next board meeting, which is May 6th and 7th at 8:30 a.m. So thank you, member of the public, for participating, our stakeholders. Thank you, board members. We adjourn to May 6th and 7th. You're free to go.
Thank you all. Have a good day.